did a vPub that focused on distilleries, new distilleries, and back in November of last year, I did a vPub that focused on distilleries, new distilleries, and their impact on Scotch whisky. And at that time, between the years of the 2000 and 2030, we talked about how there are going to be north of potentially 70 new distilleries built. That's malt distilleries in Scotland alone. So we covered a lot of things. We talked about how exciting that is for presentation, for quality, for flavour-led products, for natural products, for all of these wonderful things that we're excited about as whisky botherers. But we left one question that was a wee bit unanswered. With north of 70 new distilleries, who's going to buy all of this whisky? So to answer that, and to talk about a lot of other things as well, I've come to Rassi. It's pretty, isn't it? I'll see you in a second. Hello, whisky folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub with a very, very different backdrop, a different feel, a different place. Of course, you're joining us as we are on location. This is the vPub traveling. This is us broadcasting to you, as you saw from the intro there. It's slightly patchy intro. Sorry about the wind noise and the skipping and the things. And, you know, it's not a vPub on location unless we get some technical gremlins. We've had it all day, and since we arrived here, we've had the technical gremlins. We've been battling them like we always do. So please chime in and let me know that you can hear me okay, that the audio is okay, it's not too echoey, and that you can see me. Hearing me is more important though. Everybody, anyway, welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to Raasay. Hope you're all doing very well. Looking forward to hanging out with you from here. Bringing in one or two of the staff members. We'll be spending a lot of time with Alistair here today. And then towards the end, we'll see who is left, still working late into the night from the team, and try and bully them into joining us for a wee bit of a very on-theme, very Rassi-focused vPub quiz at the end. But between now and then, there's a lot of ground to cover. You might remember from the vPub, as I mentioned there in the intro, that we did in November last year, talking about new distilleries and the positive impact that they've had, bringing us all of this fantastic new choice and variety, bringing us the quality, bringing us the upped presentation, bringing us natural whisky, and most of the time at very reasonable prices too, and how positive all of that was, the positive impact they then had on sustainability and whisky's future, and the positive impact that they had generally on the image of whiskey, making whiskey a lot less elitist, a lot less stuffy, and a lot more accessible and a lot more vibrant. Well, that was fantastic. But I kind of left a question hanging in the air, very deliberately so, because back in November, I was supposed to be in Raasay last year, and we had to postpone it. We had to push it out to springtime to this year. And the question that I wanted to ask while I was here on Raasay, there's no point in me theorizing about the answers to these questions, is where are all of these new whiskies going to end up? Where are they going to go? What retail spaces is going to be made available for them? Who is going to buy all of this whiskey? After I've welcomed in some of the beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies in the chat tonight, I'm going to refresh your memory of just the scale of what we're talking about. And I'll bring up those same slides I shared with you last year to talk about just the scale of the new distilleries that we're considering as we talk about these topics tonight. But in the meantime, there's loads of you in. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Hope this is working. I should be looking for warnings of people trying to get my attention to say that, but hopefully everything's okay. I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you dedicated barflies and beautiful whiskey folk. I hope you're all doing very well. Cheers, everyone. Welcome. Who do we have tonight? Michael Wood is in. Good to see you. Jerry Miller is here saying, thank you for doing this, Roy. Jerry, thank me after it's done. Let's not say give the thanks before the thing is done. We've still got a lot of work to do, stuff to get through tonight. Wonderful to have you, Jerry. I hope you're keeping well. Whiskey and Wine Trails. Tom is in saying, okay, enough of this scenic views. You should work for the tourist board. And Des is saying, great scenery. The trouble is because the vPub goes out at 9:45 at night, Tom, it means that I have to give you pre-recorded video to give you some idea of the sense of place, the sense of the environment that we're sitting in here, because really we're in the gathering room here and within the Distillery Visitor Centre. It's a fantastic visitor centre, a fantastic place, a fantastic room to be in. But because it's dark now, you don't really get a sense of that fantastic view. Hopefully some of you managed to pick it up. I was sharing it on social media today. I shared some images on the Aquavitae Barflies page on Facebook and also shared it on Twitter and things, just to let you see where I was working from today. And I was genuinely working most of the time. Nice to have you, Tom. Nice to have you in. Whiskey Weekend Dram, that's Harrow. He's saying, nice view and a little bit reddish. I'm always red, Harrow. I mean, I think I'm especially red because of the weather that we've had for the last couple of days. Got to charge up on the vitamin D, haven't we? Rob Halford is here. You've outdone yourself, Aquavitae. Stunning opener. Thank you very much, Rob. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Nice to welcome you in, buddy. George Ellis here saying, I think Roy has been enjoying some sunshine. Busted as such, George. Good to have you. Greg's Whiskey Guy from Paris. He's saying, looks like Roy's bothy now. Yeah, this would be a nice bothy, I have to be honest. This would be a nice spot. Good evening, Roy, says Max Kreitner. Good evening to you. Just quickly, everyone, I know that I'm here in Rassi now. I'm fully focused on that. But I've got one eye on the weekend. I'm excited to be able to hang out with so many of you this weekend because, of course, it's the Limburg Festival this weekend. So many of you are already gathering in Limburg now, and over the course of tomorrow, I arrive there on Saturday. I'll be at the fair on Saturday and Sunday. Don't do what you did last year and be shy and say, Roy, I wish I'd come up and said hello, but I saw you were busy, you were chatting. Say hi, give me a handshake, say hello. This is the opportunity to see so many barflies and friends across the continent in Germany, wherever you're from. But wonderful time was had last year, and we're looking to repeat that this weekend. I can't wait to see you all in Limburg. Interestingly, Kira from Raasay and Alistair will both be participating in the Limburg Festival in Germany this weekend as well. We're all looking forward to it. Good to see you all. Good. I'm looking forward to seeing you, Max. Jimmy Legg is here, of course he is. Looked like we could get some fossils out of that wall. There's a very fossil theme, as you know very well, Jimmy, when it would come to talk about Rassi. I don't know if fossils will come into the topic tonight, but sure, anything goes. Danny Hebbington, nice to have you, Jimmy, always. Danny Hebbington is saying, even though I feel a little embarrassed to say that it's right on my doorstep and I've never been, you need to come here. You need to come here. It is just, it's awesome. There's no other word for it. I said pretty in the intro. It's beautiful. It's stunning. Of course, we're treated to a really blue sky, gorgeous sunny day where somebody's cranked up the saturation. Everything is iridescent in colour over the last couple of days. but it's almost made me think I would like to see this view with some really moody weather fronts coming in and sweeping up between here and the Isle of Skye. However you make it here, whatever weather, I guarantee you it's worth the trip. It's worth it for the whiskey too, believe me. Peter is saying, great intro, looking forward to a great vPub. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for everything. Thanks for your comments. Thank you for your Patreon support. Thank you for everything that you've been doing. I'm glad that you're excited for it. But as I mentioned earlier, let's save the thanks until after we've successfully did this thing tonight. And Rick Johnson is saying you sound great. That means a lot because I'm in a big echoey room here, so having the mic a bit closer to my face hopefully helps. Chris Pollock is saying, evening Roy, impressive views in the intro. Good to see you, Chris. And Molasses Mike is saying, sounds great. Thank you. Rick Bonin. Rick, that looks like a new name. Welcome to the vPub. It's nice to have you here, buddy. And Scott Allen is saying, looks and sounds great. Terrific stuff. Let's scroll down a bit and let me catch some of the more recent comments. Mirko is here and he's saying, it looks like you have wide-angled enabled. There's a reason for that. We have to have, it looks like I'm in a big space right now, but I'm hoping to bully some people into joining a wee bit later, as I mentioned. So we have to have the camera able to include a few more folks a wee bit later. Mirko, wonderful to have you, buddy. Looking forward to meeting you in Glasgow in the days ahead. Sandy McDonald is saying, I spent a night at Raasay Distillery about a year ago, and I've had the same weather you are having. It was stunning. So there you go. They're making jokes here that it only happens once. I think they're keeping a secret from us. The weather here is fantastic, and it doesn't happen just once or twice a year, right? Roy Meir in Norway is saying, good evening, Roy and the Barflies. Impressive office. Thank you, Roy. Good to see you. And Molasses Mike is saying, opening my first sample of Rassi during the vPub and looking forward to it. Listen, I'm looking forward to hanging out with all you guys. We're north of 300 people in, so a wee bit less of me kind of rambling on. I will keep the chat open tonight. I will try to keep as focused on it as I possibly can, because what's the point of doing a live broadcast from here unless we can involve you guys? So when Alistair joins me a little bit later on, we'll kind of try and keep it open a bit so that you can ask direct questions to the folk who have been behind the scenes here making such fantastic whiskey. In the glass right now, I am sipping the RO. So I have the RO1 and the RO2. What we have here is the next release. I'm sipping the RO2.1, which is the second release of the year. .1 is 2022, I believe. So it's very simple numbering that they have, RO1, RO2, and the ongoing releases .1, .2. It's pretty straightforward. But cheers, everyone, and welcome in. This is absolutely delicious. I want to start with some comments inside Patreon. Some of the Patreon supporters put forward some comments, and I'm very guilty of forgetting to use their comments. So if I do that just now, it might help me segue into building up to a few topics, a few things that I want to talk about new distilleries, about new whiskey, about where it's going to go, about who's going to buy it, and about the value proposition to us as whiskey botherers today in 2023, what it means to us to have all of this whiskey. Is it genuinely all going to be different whiskey? Is it genuinely all going to be enjoyable? And is it genuinely all going to be good quality? We hope so. We certainly hope that it's fairly priced, and we hope that it's natural and all of those things. As a whiskey community, we would love to have that, because for us, it's so much about sitting down and enjoying the very visceral experience that enjoying a glass of good quality whiskey is with other like-minded folk. And we can only do that if it is something that's good, tasty, and accessible. Let me read a few of these comments out from Patreon. Tom Oettinger, Whiskey and Wine Trails, he's in tonight, and he says, we'll be excited to experience this island and distillery virtually, as I have my eye on them for a future trip next year. Tom's in the States, limited availability and exposure to Raasay right now, and a lot of new distilleries, but he's going to make the pilgrimage later in the year. He's coming over later in this year, but he's talking about making a distillery visit tour next year. And he's saying he went out and picked up a bottle of their core range so he can share a dram with us tonight. Thanks for the road trip, Roy. Tom, in the live chat tonight, share which expression that you have and share what you think about it. Share it with us. Andrew Calderwood is saying, exciting times, I must admit. He's saying, buying less legacy stuff and more from emerging young distilleries. This is exactly on topic tonight, Andrew. He says, seems to be where the excitement and trying of the new ideas is currently. Such a great vibe, talking to the new guys. Scott needs the live link. Yes, okay, that's a good call. I just had a runner come in and remind me to do something brilliant. Anyway, Tom is saying, a bottle of, Andrew was saying, and trying of the new ideas is currently such a great vibe. Talking to the new guys, the passion and creativity is evident. It is evident, and I think that there's a sense of that passion and creativity from a distance. If you're buying the bottle, if you're reading about the bottle, you're checking in on their social media and things. But really, and I know it's difficult for everybody to make the pilgrimage to the source, but either at the source or through speaking to these people directly at festivals, whiskey tastings, virtual tastings, these kind of things, the passion is difficult for them to contain. Everything that they say is underlined by this real belief, this real desire to make whiskey that's wonderful and making a real difference. I better get that link sorted out, because what kind of night is it going to be if we don't have Alistair Day involved with us tonight? So I'll send this off just now. Should have been done earlier, but we did have some technical difficulties, as I mentioned. There we go. Apologies. He has it now. Fantastic. Let me continue with those Patreon comments. Sheldon Kerr is saying, I really enjoyed R101. It's the first release. I thought it was right up there with Ardnamurchan. High praise indeed, Sheldon. Terrific. He's saying, I'm very interested to hear their plans for a Campbelltown distillery. Cheers and safe travels. Frank, whose Petehead is in tonight, he's saying the ultimate useless post from Petehead. Looking forward to this vPub as always. As if there is a vPub I'm not looking forward to. See you all Thursday. Fantastic, Frank, and wonderful to have you. But Dave Swift finishes off with a nice segue here. I want to talk about this. I know Rassi has already built up a good chunk of loyalists, but I couldn't get along with R101. There was a metallic vibe I didn't enjoy, so I've steered clear since, because there are so many other new options. I've talked about this on the vPub before, but I think we need to be super mindful of it. Wouldn't it be wonderful to go back to the founding years of our favourite distilleries, whether that's Laphroaig, Lagavulin, 1816, early 19th century, right? Or whether that's Clynelish, whenever that's going to be, it would be wonderful to go back and taste their liquid when they were still in their infancy, when they were just 1, 2, 3, 4, a few years old. Of course, it's impossible to do that. It's absolutely impossible. But we would, as enthusiasts, love to be able to do it. But that's what we are living through now. We are through tasting distillery products that are released at 3 years old from the likes of Clydeside, from the likes of Lindores and Lochlee, and from Raasay and Ardnamurchan and Lag, and so many others. We're able to not taste what they're presenting as their whiskey going forward, but a snapshot of what they have at hand at a certain moment in time. They are batch labeling them for a very deliberate reason. This is not going to be their core range release product. This is what they have now. Guaranteed at such a young age, the very next release is going to be a step change. It's going to be a step change. It's going to change very, very fast. And that's the privilege that we have today. It's all optional. We don't need to buy every release that every new distillery puts out. But as a community, as a crowd, as a collective, we can get together and we can share the ones that are delicious, and we can share the ones that are having really interesting increases in quality as those step changes happen. So to judge any distillery based on something that came out at 3 years old, I have had to learn very recently, because it's a new thing for me, of course, that is probably not the thing to do. If you judge Lag based on their spirits that they've put out their first 3 releases, it's not going to be anything like how that whiskey is going to mature, that big beefy spirit that is Lag. I'll be honest with you, Sheldon. Sorry, it was Dave Swift. I'll be honest with you, Dave. I didn't get on well with Rassay's R01. Despite a lot of people around me telling me how fabulous the new Raasay was, I tried it and thought, okay, this is interesting. This is a characterful spirit. It's really bright, it's really jaggy, but I could taste the peat and I could taste the wine cask. And I felt I could taste the rye cask. It was their first ever release. I still went out and bought RO2. I think it's the 2.1. I think the one I actually have at home is this one that I'm sipping here tonight. It's night and day different. It's incredibly different. I've had the privilege through being here to be able to touch and taste whiskies that they have planned for fairly imminent release and things that are much longer planned, such with much longer lead times. The character, the depth, the richness, the density of their product, the whiskey that they have here, it's a marvel. It's incredible to taste. So when you walk around the distillery and you see their borehole 60 meters under the distillery, pulling up the water that is here, the water that they'll use for everything right throughout their process, whether it's production, whether it's cooling, or whether it's for reduction before filling the cask. And crucially, because they bottle here, that exact same water is used for bottling as well. This is special. This is amazing. All of this plays into building a unique product. Design the best possible setup that they have tried here, the best intentions. I have a feeling that this whiskey is coming along nicely, but it's almost taking care of itself. It's like it's doing its own thing. So I want to talk a wee bit about that tonight. But then I want to talk about how this gorgeous whiskey in this gorgeous bottle at this gorgeous distillery in this location, how is it going to compete in the world? Who's going to buy all of this whiskey? Who's going to put it on which retailers are going to put it on their shelves? When there's so many distilleries coming. Let me show you how many distilleries are coming. I did miss a super chat, and it was from Highland Hamish. Hamish, so good to see you, buddy. I hope you're doing well. He says, I hope you track down the Yankees on the loose in the Highlands and Islands, Roy. I'll be starting the search party on Isla from Sunday. Don't worry about it. They will make Isla. They're in good hands. Hopefully, Quinn, the driver, you're a hero, Quinn, you're a superstar, managed to get them all back to Inverness, and they will be making their way around Isla. I did manage to meet up with them here. It was all too brief a visit, but it was wonderful to have them. That's Mark Goins, and his buddies are over. Mark, I hope you're watching, buddy, and I hope you're doing well. Cheers. And cheers to you, Hamish, for buying me a wee dram. Let me show you some things. So if I sneak over to the side here, so that you can actually see these things that I'm going to pull up to you, when we talk about new distilleries. Anybody that watched the vPub in November, you've seen these before, but it's nice to refresh your memory. Let me show you all the new distilleries currently that we have that are, let's say, new distilleries that have yet to release a product. So we're not talking about Rassi here. We're talking about a distillery such as Harris, a distillery such as Ardnahoe. These distilleries that are in production, they're making whiskey right now, but they've not released a product yet. This is how many there are. Here we go. I don't know, I haven't got, you remember from last year, these were all counted out and I listed them to you. I gave you a list. If you're interested in just how many there are and what the names are, go back and have a wee look at that. Pretty focused vPub from November last year. But that's quite a lot, somewhere in the order of 20 distilleries currently beavering away making whiskey that have yet to release. Let's add that to these distilleries. These are new distilleries that are making whiskey and have already released. This is numbering, as we stand today, or let's say when I put this together in November last year, in the order of 27. Now, if we take those distilleries, mash them together, then add all the distilleries between the years of 2000 and 2030, so in that 30-year window that we're living through right now, add in all the distilleries that are planned, genuinely planned, so they have some form of finance, some form of work in progress already happened, they're in construction, but they're not yet producing whiskey. Let's show just how many there are. When I did the vPub in November last year, what you're looking at here on the screen right now, that numbered 70 distilleries. Malt producing distilleries in Scotland alone. And there's another two, at least, since. There's one right up in the very top of the country. Can't remember the name. It came up in the the lock-in I did with patrons on Sunday. Starts with an S, can't remember. And we've got Cask that was just announced in the last 2 weeks as well in the Southern Highlands. So we're already at 72 since I did this vPub. 72 new Scotch malt distilleries. It's incredible. So it begs the question, doesn't it? Who's going to buy it all? I've got my own opinions, I've got my own ideas, of course. But there are people building businesses on the back of being able to sell this whiskey at some point. And I think it's a compelling and interesting thing. What say you? Remember that, you know, virtual retail spaces don't really know any limits in terms of space. I guess it's a warehouse. But bricks and mortar retail spaces are very much limited with how much shelf space they can give to whiskey. I don't know how many whiskey retailers you've been in recently, but they remain pretty full before all of these whiskies arrive. And yet, to my eye, the selection there is changing. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram to say, why do new distilleries not fill some used bourbon casks and leave them? Refill casks. They all seem to be going for multiple special casks. Don't they want us to know their distillate? I'm not buying. Jimmy, so much to talk about there. So much that's like some kind of whiskey grenade you've rolled into the room there. It's perfect, buddy. Thank you for the dram, for buying it. I think you'll find we will have a chance to talk about that very topic tonight, among others. Whiskey Weekend Harrow is saying, what's the connection between Harris and Rassi? Well, I don't know if there's a connection, apart from the fact that they're both Hebridean islands. We can ask Alistair that directly. Harrow, good to have you, buddy. Keith McDonald is saying, good to see you, Keith. I hope you're doing well. How's your brother? He said, my one-year-old son has already had some 18-year scotch rubbed on his gums for teething. Oh, my goodness. That used to be something, believe it or not, that was well known back in the day in Scotland. I'm not sure we ever used whiskey for any kind of teething ointments or whatever. But there you go, Keith. Did he enjoy it? Chris Barlow is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 4 months. Evening, Roy, and all the wonderful Barflies. And Danny Hebbington, you star, he's gifted 10 Aquavitae memberships. Let me tell you what that is very, very quickly. The Barflies, they pay. So if you're on a desktop, you can click the join button and you join the channel for $1.99 a month of euros, pounds, dollars, whatever it is. And you keep the vPub ad-free. You do not need to sit through YouTube ads to watch the vPub because of the Barflies. The Barflies are keeping it free for everyone, ad-free for everyone. It's fantastic. You get access to nice little emojis and very channel-themed things, as well as wee loyalty badges and stuff. Not just for the live chat that you're in tonight, but for the comments below. The channel is funded through Patreon. I am funded through Patreon. So many of the Barflies are also Patreon supporters. I've actually got one in the distillery this very evening. Anyway, thank you, Danny, and thank you, Chris Barlow, for your fantastic support. I think what I'd like to do now is I'd just like to get on and talk about the environment I'm in, this fabulous place. I'm going to reach out to Alistair Day, the man in charge here, as you speak to Alistair, he's very open, he's very candid, he's willing to talk about any topic you like. There is nothing off the cards tonight. Ask any questions that you want. But what I wanted to do specifically was try and get a sense of the distillery, rather than just have Alistair here sat next to me with a pretty as it is wall behind me here. Wanted to go. So Alistair's up in the still house. Send up a wee prayer to the whiskey gods for us that this is going to work, because it was a wee bit trickier earlier, if I'm honest. We've been fighting internet connections since we got here. We've been fighting audio issues like we always do, but we're going to give it a try. Let's go over to Alistair and see how he's doing in Rassay's still house. Alistair?
Good evening, Roy.
Oh my goodness, it's working. It's incredible. I almost am expecting a round of applause to break out. That's incredible, Alistair. So wonderful to have you. So wonderful to be able to hear you too. Thank you for your warm welcome, and it's wonderful to be here with you. You're standing in a perfect spot. We can hear you clearly. We can see you clearly. It's working perfectly. You've got some pretty stills behind us, Alistair. I was struck. I want to talk about those stills. I hope you talk about it. One of the things that struck me as I was walking along the gangway into your distillery was how compact it is, how neat it is, how everything is clearly laid out. But there can be very few distilleries that we can see today, Alistair, that you can stand on almost in the middle of it, turn around 360 degrees and see almost block by block all the elements of the process, right? Tell us where you are, Alistair.
Well, I'm in the distillery, as you said, standing in front of our wash still, and behind me is our spirit still. And if I come over and very gently move the camera, hopefully I can turn this round, and you can see our washbacks and our hot liquor tanks at the end there. So it gives you an idea of just how compact the distillery is.
So when you say it with the 6 stainless steel vessels that we saw there, the washbacks.
Yeah.
Another thing that struck me, the hot liquor tanks down to the back, they look exactly the same as the washbacks. Can we see that again? Can we? Is it difficult for you to swing that camera around?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. Here we go.
Tell us why they are the same. This is interesting to me. So 3 on the left, 3 on the right, 6 stainless steel fermentation vessels. Fantastic. That's where so much of the flavour is created in the process, right? And down at the back, just beyond this short gangway there, we have 2 other vessels that look the exact same.
Yeah, so there are hot liquor tanks. So that's the hot water that you use for mashing. But as you see, they are exactly the same, 5,000 litre tank, same shape. So if we do want to increase production, it's possible to turn these 2 tanks into washbacks, into fermentation tanks as well, which would give us 8 tanks. Now that's important because if we do decide to increase production, we can maintain our 3 to 5 day fermentations. And that, to me, is a very important part of our Rassi spirit and why we can get some complexity and depth, because we've got different fermentation times and quite long fermentation times as well.
So that's really interesting, because so many times you hear as you do distillery tours and you get more and more information, one of the bottlenecks that really kind of controls the capacity, the litres per annum capacity of any malt distillery, is that fermentation room, right? That can be a choke point.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it is. It's one thing that can restrict you increasing production. Yeah.
So you mentioned the fermentation time there. You go for a medium to long fermentation?
Yeah, we do 6 5-day fermentations a week and 4 3-day fermentations a week. Wow. The 3-day fermentations, in industry terms, is still quite a long period of time to ferment for.
Yep.
You get all of the alcohol after 48 hours. The yeast starts dying off after 72 hours. And after 5 days, we're getting lactobacillus development. And all of that is helping create the dark fruit flavors that we're looking for in our Isle of Rassi single malt.
So you're taking a long fermentation and a short fermentation, and then I guess at some point down the road, these are mixed together, and that's where you're able to draw from both, right?
Yeah, one of the key things we're trying to do is have flexibility, have things that can be off or on, and what they do is give us slightly different styles of, whether it's a slightly different style of wash, a different style of new make. All of these are then matured separately, and they're brought back together at vatting. And for me, that's really important, particularly with our 3, 4, 5-year-old whiskey, because we want complexity, depth, and obviously the balance when we come to vatting it as well.
Got you. So if we talk about, I mean, it's one of the key blocks, let's say, in the production process for creating that flavor. So we know that's you running at your capacity right now. How many litres in LPA is Raasay? Just to give us a sense of scale, how are you running at based on those 3 and 5 day fermentations, that regime that you have in right now?
Yep. So we're currently working 2 shifts, 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year, and that gives us just over 180,000 litres of pure alcohol a year. So, under 200,000 litres. So pretty small.
Yeah, it's not, and when we talk about this is the thing that we need to remember. People might start to see Rassi appear on the retail shelves and here, there, and everywhere, regardless. I know that you're getting out to more and more markets, and we'll talk about that, Alistair. But they all, I think we always need to remember the scale of the distilleries that they come from, because it plays into the discussion that I hope you and I are going to be able to have a wee bit later. That's fermentation, fantastic. And off to just to the left back side, it's just out of shot tonight is the mash tun. So it's in the exact same room, but behind you, sorry, you've got some pretty interesting copper there as well. Tell us about your still house, because until I visited here, I didn't appreciate some of the things that makes it quite unique.
Okay, so we have our wash still here. Both our stills are made by Frilli in Tuscany in Italy. Our wash still is 5,000 litres, and you can see it's got a lantern neck, a little bit of expansion there, gives you a little bit more reflux, and then up into the line arm, and you can see it's a slightly descending line arm with a cooling jacket on the line arm, and that cooling jacket basically allows the heavier vapours to condense early. The lighter vapours go straight across the condenser. The heavier vapours then come down the pipe, and we've got a little hand valve there which can be opened or closed. So just by opening that valve, it returns those heavier vapours back to the still. Closing the valve, all the vapours go directly across to the condenser. And again, just by one small adjustment to the stills, we can produce two different types of low wines. And we do that. And, if you add into that the fact that we do 6 months of peated and 6 months of unpeated, then you can see how we're starting to build up different characters.
Layers of variation, yes, flexibility.
Yes,
so already at this
yep.
point, with peated and unpeated, two different types of low wines, we've also got four different types of spirit. And when we talk about the cooling jacket there, when we talk about that process, what we're looking at here is either light or heavier bodied spirit. Would I be correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So in basic terms, it's lighter and heavier spirit. It also importantly gives you more viscosity. That heavier spirit gives you more viscosity. More viscosity gives you more mouthfeel. Again, that's something we're looking for, particularly in our peated new mix spirit. We want to have that viscosity that it coats your mouth and adds that kind of oiliness to our single malt.
And so many of us enjoy that texture. So many of us love it. It's interesting that's where you're finding ways to add that. So the spirit still, there's a unique thing that I take away from the spirit still as well. If we go into a distillery, Alistair, we normally see, if we see a window in a still, we pretty much know that we're looking at a wash still. Quite curious to see that your spirit still not only had one, but it had two windows in it. You can see right through that elegant little narrow neck of that spirit still there, right? I know, I hope I wasn't rude when I suggested to you when I first saw it, how cute it was. The spirit still here, I don't know if the camera is able to demonstrate, this is not a big thing. This is a neat little spirit still with two windows.
Yeah, and as you say, it's not normal to have that in a spirit still, but we've got such a great view out there. One of the reasons it's nice, it's nice to be able to look through the still and see it. But it is actually interesting because you can actually see the reflux of the spirit happening. If you look at our line arm on the spirit still, it's slightly inclined, so that means you get natural reflux with the vapors running back down into the still. And you can actually see that happening by looking through those sight glasses. Yeah.
Which is a very rare privilege when you think about it. Now, for me, Alistair, and I hope that anybody that's watching, that they're maybe not excited by the technical side of things, there's a wee secret that you've got hiding in the corner that I need people to see, because this is fabulous. What is that hiding? What is that?
So hopefully you can see that. I'm at the limit of the cable here, so apologies. But hiding in the corner there is our little purifier. It's 6 bubble cap plates in there, copper plates. And you can probably see just at the end of the line arm there, there's 2 valves. So again, it's a valve that can be opened or closed. If that valve is open, then the spirit can come back down into the bottom of the purifier, up through the bubble cap plates, and then into the condenser. So that does a number of things. One is we can, in one pass, we can get to 80% ABV on the spirit. It's more copper, so it produces a lighter spirit. But what it also does is that dark fruit character that we're looking for, it concentrates that almost black currant or black cherry flavour. It just focuses in on that. And the other way I would describe it, if you go back to the spirit still, you can see the classic swan neck still. If we were to take the purifier and put that where the swan neck is, you would have a Carter head or a Lomond still. So what we're able to do by just opening one valve is change from a swan neck to a Carter head still. So we don't have a third still, but essentially we do when we open that valve.
This is just, for me, this is fascinating because, and anybody that's out there, the easiest way that I could make a comparison, I suppose, was to consider the setup maybe at a place like Loch Lomond, where they have those pretty traditional swan-necked pot stills, but right next to them, they also have, in a different configuration, of course, they have that straight-necked configuration on top of it to make their straight-necked pot stills, bringing, for me, probably my favourite style of Loch Lomond spirit, whether it's peated, unpeated, Chardonnay yeast, whatever it is. When I hear that it's from the straight-necked pot stills, what I'm looking for is that extra pop of fruit. So when you were presenting that to us yesterday, the first thing that came into my head was that. And when you talked about that black cherry, that black currant, that fruit amplification that you can design in there, we've got the layers of peated and unpeated. We've got the layers from the fermentation times, the 3-day, the 5-day. We've got the cooling jacket. We've got the configuration of the wash still, adding in these layers of flexibility and complexity. And then we go to the spirit still, and you've essentially got a configuration that gives you swan neck and straight neck. The footprint that you've achieved this in, all of these layers, all of this complexity, Alistair, we haven't even started to talk about wood yet, as much as Jimmy Legg wants us to talk about your wood policy. We're not even near the warehouse yet. And we've built up super complex variations in the amount of spirit that you're making. It's fascinating to hear about it in a distillery, let's remind ourselves, that's making us currently 180,000 litres per annum. To me, this is fascinating to witness. It's incredible. When you brought out your R101, your R01, it's impossible for you to convey the message of that complexity in one release, isn't it?
Of course, absolutely.
So it's impossible for you to do it over this core release, even though you're bringing it out twice a year now, twice. It's going to be, we all need patience. But while we wait, while we watch this thing maturing, understand the treasures that are ahead simply because of how you've geared up the production. Alistair, thanks very much for tuning in from the still house.
No problem. It's been
At your leisure, come down, pour a wee whiskey and sit alongside me, won't you?
I will do. I'm on my way.
I'll see you in a second, buddy. Fantastic.
All right. Cheers, Roy. Cheers.
Amazing to see. I really wanted the tech to work. I wanted you to see that still house. I wanted you to see that production facility and get a sense of layer by layer of layer about how we are not in the same times as what whiskey, the way whiskey used to be made once upon a time, where it was made to go into a blend. It was a component to go into a blend. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the thing that made Scotch whiskey the great thing that it is today. But now, none of these new distilleries that are appearing are making product to go into a blend. They're making their own product. And while they can make their own whiskey and perhaps trade it one day in order to blend things, what they're able to do is, through creating multiple variations of their own distillate, they're able to have so much variety and interesting things, like I said, before we even get to the point of putting it in that wood. Whisky and Wine Trails, Tom, thank you so much for your dram, my friend. A few coins, he's saying, for the audio-visual kitty is very much appreciated, my friend. He's saying the sound is spot on. More roadshows, please. If they weren't so stressful, Tom, I would probably do them more than a couple of times a year, believe me. Let's see. Luna Aaron is saying, great to read you. The barfly emoji is the coolest. Fantastic, Luna. I'm glad that you're enjoying that thing. We've got Danny Hebbington saying that's very nicely put together. Thank you very much, Danny. I'm sure Alistair will be very grateful to hear that too. And Ian Bruce is saying, Roy, can you ask Alistair if the horizontal run on the line arm has any additional effect on the spirit too? Well, he's just appeared here while he's getting mic'd up. I hope he can. Horizontal line arm is what Ian Bruce is after asking about. And Richard Hall is saying, great tasting, and now we get to drop into the Aquavitae vPub. We're spoiled. Nice to welcome you guys. The Nottingham Whisky Association, obviously, I've been having their retasting tonight as well. I hope it's gone really, really well. I've been able to join at least one of those, and it was great fun to see you all. I love the fact that the Nottingham Whisky Association was founded in this very chat, like so many other whisky clubs out there. You guys are amazing, the way you're all finding each other and getting together. And Luna, there was the other question, could you ask Alistair, if the yeast dies after 48 hours, what happens in fermentation after this time? We're going to have to, I don't know if you're up for a secondary fermentation discussion.
I'm absolutely all set for that. Yeah.
Please come in, have a seat. I'm not almost finished, but I'm enjoying my first dram. Alistair, I want to say thank you so much for your welcome. Is this switched on?
Hopefully it is.
Good. You can, as long as everybody can hear Alistair, I will try to I'll catch up with the chat so that we can hear anything. Fast Ref saying, what a change since I found whiskey. I wouldn't have heard the thought of new distilleries opening. Closing was what happened, and now these days newcomers are my favourites. So it's the enthusiast that's at the leading edge, the bleeding edge of things. Yeah. They're the ones out front. They're the nose of the dog, not the tail, right? Yeah. So it's this fascinating thing where we're living through this time where it's exploding. Before we get into it, let's answer Ian Bruce's question about the line arm.
Yeah,
since he asked it. And also Luna's about the fermentation. But Ian specifically asked about a vertical line arm versus an incline or a decline. What is the...
Yeah, so...
Sorry, have you got a dram?
I have got a dram.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I can take a break now. Thank you.
Yeah, so essentially with the line arm, if it's steeply descending, that's going to give you the heaviest spirit. If it's steeply ascending, it's going to give you the lightest spirit. But also, I think the question there was the length of the line arm. So that is another very important part, because the longer the line arm, the more copper. So the more copper contact, again, the lighter the spirit. So copper is a catalyst that removes some of the impurities from the spirit. That's why we use copper. Yep. So yes, not just the angle of the line arm, but the length of the line arm is a crucial part in the design of a still.
Yeah. And I think that if you think of a long line arm, I can't help but not think of Ardnahoe if you've ever seen Ardnahoe. Of course, yeah. Slightly inclining all the way up to the worm tub there, really, really, really crazy long. And if you're looking at a decline, probably Macallan would be the kind of
steep.
Yeah, super small stills, super steep. And so and that's what kind of gives Macallan some of that, what it was traditionally known for. Yeah. I can't really comment on modern Macallan, unfortunately. Macallan, maybe we can talk about that. Maybe I need some more products that I can actually afford from you. Thank you very much.
Just on Macallan topic, our spirit still is 3,600 litres, which is exactly the same size as the new Macallan spirit stills. However, we have one and they have 24.
Perfect. So they've got those 12 in a group spirit stills, 2 rings of them up there at the distillery. They have 24 spirit stills. Very steeply designed. So that kind of gives that Macallan spirit some of that robustness, some of that kind of meatiness, sulphurous, whatever it is, because there's a lot less copper contact there. What about secondary fermentation from Luna then?
Okay, so
we are with they are whiskey enthusiasts.
No, it's certainly interesting for me too. So 48 hours is actually how long it takes to get most of the alcohol. The yeast starts dying after 72 hours, approximately 72 hours. So that's into your 3-day fermentations. When the yeast dies off, the yeast cells open up It's called lysis, and you get some of that character in the wash from that. So you get those kind of buttery, you get more proteins, that sort of thing from the yeast cell dying. So it's actually a very beneficial thing to flavour.
Yes, yes.
And then after the 72 hours, you get lactobacillus development. Now, lactobacillus, there's hundreds of different types of lactobacillus.
Yeah.
They all occur naturally on barley and other grains, but when you go through mashing, very few of them can survive the mashing temperatures. So there are maybe only 3 or 4 types of lactobacillus that will survive the 64 degrees, that first water temperature. And interestingly, from my point of view, because I used to work in dairy before I worked in whiskey.
Of course, yeah.
In cheese, we used lactobacillus helvetica, and we used that in cheddar to get the flavour profile of a 3-year-old cheddar in 18 months. Now, it just so happens that lactobacillus helvetica is one of those ones that can survive that mashing temperature. So potentially, you're looking at something that develops flavour wherever it's used. And the other important thing is lactobacillus, they get their name from the fact they produce lactic acid.
Yeah.
Lactic acid obviously lowers the pH. The lower the pH, the better the interaction with the copper. But also, that lactic acid reacts with the esters that have already been produced, and you get even more different flavour conjures.
Is there an ability to almost overcook it a little bit in that respect, and sometimes get a little bit of a cheesy aspect to it? Maybe sometimes
that's a very good question.
Yeah, I mean, there are distillery characters out there that we recognise, that I recognise, that sometimes can bring it to the point that sometimes I do this with a glass of certain distilleries, and you're looking for it.
Yeah. So I think that comes from somewhere slightly different. It can come from, say, a buncloth that over a long period of maturation, that buncloth breaks down, and you get butyric acid. Butyric acid is, unfortunately, that rancid butter or baby sick.
Baby sick, yeah.
So to me, that's coming from somewhere slightly different rather than the fermentation. But clearly, I'll stand corrected. But that's my thoughts on those flavours.
I've had no baby sick thus far. So, I mean, that was kind of the thing. I mean, we can hear it, we can read it, we can talk about it, we can do virtual things and all the rest. I think that the dawning for me, the realization is that to touch it, to feel the layers of complexity that's put in such a ridiculously small, compact footprint is difficult for you, despite the gorgeous bottles. Jeff Whisky is saying, can you ask him why the bottles look so damn good? Lots of compliments coming in as well. They're absolutely gorgeous bottles. And they are quite big labels. There's a lot of good, transparent information. Thank you for keeping the marketing fluff at a minimum and keeping the information on the bottle on point. But it's difficult for you to get all of that across. You need to be a little bit patient. But I can tell through speaking to you, and I can tell that you're almost not finishing a sentence and you're skipping on to the next, because you're just so impassioned and excited to talk about what is making Rassi a wee bit different from maybe other distilleries, but I think more different from a traditional sense of what distilleries used to do, perhaps even the larger scale distilleries. This is a different way of making, a different way of looking at single malt Scotch whisky.
Yeah.
The complexity that you're designing in is amazing, and we're not even at the warehouse, as I said.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, from my point of view, there's so much information. There's so many things that I would like to get across, but at the same time, we have to have a signature Isle of Rassi single malt. People have to know what Isle of Rassi single malt is.
The DNA that links all the expressions.
Absolutely. And so it's absolutely key, particularly in the early years for us, is that we can talk about our single malt. We can give the people who want the information how it's made. Some of the variations between batches, but always within a band, is really important to do that. But some of my, as you said, excitement and wanting to tell it is because your question, who is going to buy all this single malt? As a new distillery, we have to stand out. We have to be good. And, for me, and we've talked about it before, luxury of having a blank sheet of paper, designing a spirit, designing a process to make that spirit in a very compact space.
Aye.
So, you know, that having done that, the passion is there about having done that.
Yep.
Design it in such a way that we can do all of these different things, because we have to stand out. Somehow we have to stand out. And that ties directly into the design of the bottle. The design of the bottle is doing exactly that on shelf, but the spirit has to stand out. The spirit has been designed.
People will buy a pretty bottle once,
Yeah,
but if the contents inside the pretty bottle doesn't match up to the,
absolutely.
you know, and I think that,
And it has to get better. It has to keep it.
well,
improving.
I mean, I don't like so many times over the course of this last couple of days, I've said to Alistair and said, permission to speak candidly, right? And I think you're ready for it. You've already heard lots and lots of positivity about the releases that's gone out. It buoys you and it powers you forward and things. But for me, R01, for me, I could literally taste the peat.
Yeah.
I could taste the wine. I could taste the rye. I could taste all of these. It was almost like a whiskey sandwich.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting through it. I'm enjoying it fine. But I knew I had the sensation that, okay, this is not Rassi. This is not Rassi yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is Rassi giving us, because we're banging on their door saying, let us have the whiskey, please.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting it out at £55 as well. Thank you. And thank you for being so transparent with it too. But it wasn't until R02 came along, the lights came on.
Yeah.
We're moving here. But it wasn't an incremental move, Alistair. It's maybe down to the wood policy that we have in place just now, because you had to put in, on your blank sheet of paper, you had to put in a plan where you could make engaging whiskey, flavourful whiskey at a young age. So the wood policy supports that as it stands today. But Jimmy Legg, I need to go back to his comment from earlier, my pal Jimmy, who's always, if there's a cantankerous question to be asked tonight, there's a good chance it's going to come from Jimmy. But he asked, he said, look, where's all the refill? What's happening with refill?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Or as we've joked, not refill, but ex-Scotch whiskey casks.
Yeah. So, I mean, you'll know because you've seen it. We do have refill casks in the warehouse. So,
I know, it's super exciting.
But
most people don't know that that's...
but again, very special refill, very special to me. I mean, the one that we opened was an ex-Canvas cask, and that Canvas had been used for a Tweedale silent character whiskey that was 27 years old, won single grain, best Scotch single grain of the year. It's a very special empty cask to me. And you know that whiskey was 27 years old, but that was a recask a refill cask when it was filled.
Yeah.
So that's probably 40, 50, maybe more years old. So we've got Rassi spirit in that now. So,
but when you heard a group of us getting excited talking about refill casks, you were excited to try. So surely this has got to be something on the horizon.
No, absolutely. And so I don't disagree with any of that. In fact, I wholeheartedly agree with it. I mean, that spirit, we tasted it yesterday, and it is our spirit character. It's the spirit character science too. It's the palest of any of the whiskies we've tried, or the spirit we've tried.
Everything is natural colour.
So
this was straw, right?
Yeah. It was hardly a colour. So very little influence of oak. However, we are a new distillery. We do have to stand out. We do have to, I think, have complexity and depth.
Yep.
And we do have to be good.
Yep.
Now, that is good liquid, but is that differentiating liquid? That would be my question. And I know you loved it.
I absolutely adored it. I adored it.
And do you know what? I do too. But does it scream Isle of Raasay Distillery? Does it make us? Can we differentiate?
I have to concede the point. I have to concede that, because I did say to you that out of the maturing whiskey that we were able to try, the one that I felt, if I was to have a cask of it, was the refill, but only if I could leave it for 10 years, right? Absolutely. If I was to take a cask away today, it was a completely different whiskey. It was a much more active cask.
Yep.
What struck me is tasting individual cask product, because what we have today from Rassi, more often than not, I mean, some single casks appear in things, but more often than not is a marriage of different, which was always a plan from day one.
Yep.
But to taste these individual, the DNA that's linking it together for me is, and this is regardless of whether it's peated or unpeated, by the way, is that ridiculous density, the richness, the moorishness of wanting to go back once you've licked it all off the roof of your mouth and the teeth and things, to go back and have a little more of a hit of that. Because let's be honest, if anybody's ever tasted whiskey in a Dunwich warehouse, that's where you're going to be. The romanticism and the environment of it all. However, when you take a wee quiet moment out and you let other people take care of the chatter for a while and you just sit with the glass, we're at just beyond 4 years old now. What's the oldest that you have?
Yeah, I mean, in the one that you were drinking there, the Arrow 2.1, the oldest casks were from 2018. They were the ex-Bordeaux wine casks. And that's another thing that is part of the development. So Arrow 1 was 3 years and 4 months.
Yes, yeah. 3-year-old whiskey. Yep.
Yeah. And this is still is 3-year-old whiskey, but the oldest casks in there were just about 4 years old.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Yeah.
And the recipe, as we call it, the Nicaea, the 6 casks, the unpeated, the peated, the ex-rye, the chinkapin, and the Bordeaux, is there on purpose because that can be flexed.
Yes.
So, for example, this year we fill about 1,500 casks a year. This year we're going to be refilling 700 casks of our casks that we've emptied for these bottlings. Now, those casks, are they refill casks? Because they're only 3-4 years old and they've only had our spirit in, for instance, the chinkapin. But my point is that as times move on, this recipe was designed to allow us to have, hopefully, excellent 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
But also excellent whatever.
So they will be absolutely refill casks, but I take your point exactly. Refill that's been 20 years, then used again for another 10 years, then used again for, we don't know, or maybe in reverse of that. These are refill casks. But if, as Alistair says, you've got a super active first fill cask, then it's a great thing. 3 years later, it becomes a refill cask, but it's not, you can't compare that to so many other. It's a context, provenance is everything. Super interesting thing, just a wee tidbit before I pick up the Whisky Franco and Justin Wan here. Provenance of cask. Yeah, it's difficult for a lot of casks, traceability, provenance of cask and things like that. Sometimes we're just lucky and have a very fortunate cask that's done very, very, very well. Probably a good provenance, but it can't be traced. Here at Raasay, because they are disgorging and filling and bottling here on site at the distillery, when you refill a cask, you know the provenance of the cask that you're refilling. Yeah, that's when it comes to wood management, that's got to be a bit of a bonus, a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, and again, that's why we do what we do here. We want to have the control. We want to be able to tell everyone everything that we can about the whiskey because we're proud of it and we hope that we're doing a good job. So the provenance, remember I came from the food industry, provenance is key, traceability is key. So when we produce batches, you know, we'll fill 6 casks a day and they'll go to the warehouse. So when we move from peated to unpeated, we bleed that through. And we know that those 6 casks or those 12 casks are our intermediate spirit and it goes down to the warehouse. Now, that can be a special bottling or that can be brought into the Vatics. Now, interestingly, in the Arrow 2.1, there was some of those intermediate casks in. So it's just another level, just another level that we can bring in and look at. And again, all purposefully done. But the one thing about having that traceability, provenance, whatever, having that record of it is it gives you control. It allows you to make decisions. So when you come to a vatting, you can go, right, well, we're going to have those, and we know that those 6 casks were produced in one day. Yeah. So we're not, and I know Norman, our operations director, will hate me for this forever, but we're not filling huge spirit receiving tanks and filling casks once a week. We are filling on a daily basis, 5 days.
Understood, exactly. And I think, well, let me pick up these 2 ones because I want to comment. You mentioned the Shea there, and I want to have to jump out. We'll catch the replay. It says Whisky Franco, brilliant to have you in, buddy. Thanks for your dram. Loving this, and Rassi is offering such an exciting new distillery. We'll be having a pour later tonight. Buddy, I'm just so glad. I know how many hours ahead you are. It's just great for you to jump in and buy me a wee dram. Thanks for Whisky Franco. Justin Wan has bought us a dram as well to say snapped out of a bad dream and realised that there's a vPub. Oops, just that jump sometimes. It's
Yeah.
great to see people
So-
witnessing when that happens, right? They say and realise that there's a vPub. Not such a bad thing to have woken up, but back to sleep now, slanch it now. And just this is the time zones. So Whisky Frank was in the US, right? 5, 6, 7, 8 hours behind us, and Justin Wan's in Asia. So it's amazing. Listen, guys, thank you very much for your drams as well. I'm going to ask Alistair to pour us something else to switch it up a wee bit from the Arrow 2. As I talk about this concept of Nicaea, right? The rooms here are interestingly named Ona, Da, Tria, Gaelic
It's the Gallic
numbers, right? Nicaea, Kira assures me, is the 6. Okay,
six,
Kira and I were having a chat about this concept. So let me see if I've got it right, and you correct me where I slip up and go wrong. Don't let me interrupt your program.
Okay, that's
But my understanding of Nicaea is that you have your peated spirit and your unpeated spirit.
that's correct.
Over Chinkapin Oak, Mullenberge, okay, Quercus Mullenberge, I think.
Yep.
Then you've got your ex-rye casks, which you're sourcing from rye producers in the US, of course. Then you've got these rich Bordeaux red wine casks, which we need to talk about because, again, it's another lights on moment for me. But if you take those 3 casks and multiply it by the 2 types of spirit, you get 6 types. So now we're moving into the maturation side, and where this is where you get this concept of the 6. This is the 6 pillars that you're building your core releases on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for the future as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us why you're not buying cheap casks, Alistair. No. I know that those are all the choices of casks you've gone for are the opposite of cheap.
Yeah.
Why?
So ex-rye casks, obviously North American oak, Quercus alba, give you classic vanilla butterscotch. But rye, the previous spirit, gives you that black pepper spice. So yes, in time, as I've discussed with many people, they will be like bourbon casks. However, for us in our recipe, we want that black pepper spice.
Yep.
The longer it's in that cask, the more of the vanilla butterscotch you're going to get. So for me, the rye casks are about getting the balance of spice, black pepper, butterscotch, vanilla. That's what they are there for. They are
what we recognise Quercus alba to be very good at. Not necessarily rye cask, but that's the pepper and spice. But that's clear to me. That I've got that.
So that's us using bourbon cask.
Yes.
But
rye casks.
Active rye cask. And that is the basis of Isle of Raasay single malt. That is the majority of the casks are peated and unpeated rye casks. Then we have the Chinkapin oak, the Quercus Mullenberge. You know what I've done, don't you? Yeah.
That's the wine cask,
That's
right?
the wine cask.
It's nuts good. It's a bottle I picked up there.
So there's a Chinkapin there is there. It's in the middle. It's holding it all together. It's North American oak, but it's Chinkapin. It's Quercus Mullenberge. It's much softer. Now we tried a cast down in the warehouse, and you can see how it's rich, dark fruits. It's not. It is oak forward, but it's not oak forward in the way that Quercus alba would be.
Well, I found it sweet, and I found it heavy and rich sweet.
Yeah.
But sweet can also mean cloying as well, and over sweet. So a lot of the time, maybe if anybody's familiar with Scotch from a virgin oak cask or something like that, we get that cloying vanilla, the toffee, the butterscotch. It can sometimes be like somebody's put an alcoholic Werther's original on your palate, right? Yeah. And it's a nice dram. We can enjoy it. Some people love it, and that's the whiskey that brings some people in. But it can be difficult. It's not a Moorish thing. When we tried that Mullenberge cask, that Chinkapin oak cask, that was the opposite of that. That was that complexity of the spirit that we're talking about with that sweetness that was not cloying.
Yeah. And for us, it's a component part. It's a component part of the blend. Although we do single cask bottlings of it, it is there as part of that Nicaea, as part of that recipe, and it starts holding it together, and we want that richness, we want those dark fruits. But then the third wood type, the ex-Bordeaux red wine.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
This is. There's another couple come in here, and I want to catch it because it is super fascinating. I'll come in and catch these before they disappear. But I want to. We get to this cask now.
So I think with red wine cask, which we know is polarizing, you say red wine cask, for some people that's like, oh my goodness, what is this about?
Yeah.
My view, so our ex-Bordeaux red wine casks obviously come from Bordeaux, but they come from the left bank, chateaus in the left bank. The left bank produce higher tannin wines. Okay, so already you're thinking this is probably not a good thing, but that's what we want. We want those high tannin wines. They've been used for 3 vintages. After 3 vintages of wine, the wine's gone about as far as into the oak as it's going to go. Okay, that's as far as wine at that alcohol strength is going to go.
So if I was to take a cross section of a stave, I would see the penetration of the wine.
You would see the oak, and then you would see a strip of red where the wine has gone, and that's after 3 vintages. That's as far as it's going to go.
Yep.
However, when we put a new mate spirit in it, it actually starts obviously going into the wood.
Yep.
So the first thing that happens is it's hitting fresh wine.
Yep.
So if that was a finish, say 3 months, red wine fruit forward, that's what you get in 3 months. 6, 9, 12 months, you're starting to get well into the wine, okay? 24 to 36 months, you're past the wine and you're into
oak,
the French oak. French oak, Quercus petrea, Quercus roba.
European oak.
European oak, French oak. The French Tonnelliers, the coopers for the wine industry, don't talk about oak species. They talk about wide grain and narrow grain. Now, you could say, and it's right to say, that Quercus petrea is narrow grain and Quercus roba is wide grain.
Broad brush, right.
However, what the French do talk about is the forest, the region that oak grows in. Okay. So you've got, for example, Alais, Limousin. These are big oak forests.
Terroir.
Yeah, but they are in different parts of France.
Yeah.
There are subtle temperature differences, growing conditions. So if an oak grows quickly, the grain is wider. Yep. If it grows slowly, the grain is tighter.
Yep.
So that's what the French Tonnelliers are looking at. Now, for these high-end Bordeaux chateaus, they are specifying what percentage of those oaks, different oaks, wide, narrow grain, that they want, the toasting level, usually just a medium toast, never a char on wine, okay? And then so we are basically inheriting this specification that chateau wants in the cask.
Aye.
That for us gives us complexity and depth. I know I keep going on about it, but what we've got to do, our job here is full-term maturation in ex-Bordeaux red wine cask. Not finished, full-term maturation. We have to get past the wine, and we have to balance those savoury spices that you get from French oak with the dark fruit of the red wine.
Yeah.
You need both. And in time, the balance will shift. The balance will shift the longer you leave it in that cask to more savoury spice and less dark fruits. So the length of time in these casks is what develops.
The only way I can, permission to use a broad brush again,
go for it.
The only way I can summarise this is that, and I've got friends out there in the whisky landscape that feel similar to me when it comes to using wine casks. If we hold up a glass of a wine, a lovely wine finished whiskey, you're going to get a pink flash, a blush, magenta highlights. It's going to be, when I hold up this, I do not see red.
No.
There's no magenta highlights in this.
No.
When I smell this and I taste this, what I want from the red wine, what I love from the red wine, I love the red fruit. I love the sweetness. I love the interesting, different take that it has on spice. What I don't want is the idea that I've just finished a big sip of builder's tea, black tea that's over stewed, and you get that crazy paving effect on the palate. You get that really kind of tannic finish that makes me just push red wines away. Like I said to you, Alistair, I've got a choice of 3 bottles here. What one are you going to buy? They're all the same price. Everything else is the red wine's going to be my last choice. Yep. And here I am today with my 3rd or 4th glass in the last 2 days of this thing. It is this is redefining what red wine can be, and the way that you've explained it to me makes sense, but I need to hear it to process it. That idea that it's gone beyond just taking the shallow, the colour, everything, the immediate stuff. You need to leave it. You need to be patient, let it get beyond that, let it assimilate that, and get back beyond it and into the oak. It sounds good. I trust you because I can taste it. It makes sense to me. But if you'd have told me that without the practical example, it would have been a harder sell. Again, it's difficult for you, I know, because you're trying to get a fantastic chat at a great location, says Ian Bruce. Thank you, buddy. I hope we answered your question as well. Kiwi God is saying, have fun, everyone. Have to get back to work. He's in New Zealand, of course. Thanks for this awesome vPub, Roy. Buddy, I hope you can pick it up in the replay. It's always wonderful to have you. And thank you for the dram. My friend Alistair Gray from Space ID saying, what a vPub. Thanks, Roy, and thanks, Alistair. Stick with it, Alistair, if you're up for it. Spells the name the same as you. It's almost the same name. I have to be careful who I WhatsApp message you.
I'm sure someone has confused us on Twitter before now.
That's true. It's absolutely true. And Graham Young, my friend in Canada, good to see you, Graham. I hope you're doing well. He said, so excited to get a tour and visit Rassi on May 6th. I happen to know that's a Sunday. So, can't wait to take in the ambience and look at this beautiful place. Graham, I hope the weather half as good as what we've had the last couple of days. You're not going to want to leave. You're not going to want to leave. And time for a dram. Gregor McQueen is in Aquavita. I recognise the guy to your right. We've been sharing some gossip and some stories and from your time here last year, Gregor. I know you enjoyed yourself. In fact, we'll raise a wee glass to Gregor McQueen. It's at his insistence. Get off your arse, Roy. Get yourself up to Rassi.
Sold down to Gregor. Thank you.
And thank you, buddy, because you're absolutely spot on.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good man.
So much of this is about the community. So we've got this thing. We've not even gotten at the core crunch of the topic yet. I can't keep my head on, Alistair. There's so much to talk about. All these layers, all these difficult complexities that you're bringing. All these, theoretically, you could fill your shop with infinite different variations on a theme based on all the complexity that you've designed in here through your production process, through your wood policy. Beautifully natural, beautifully about the provenance of the place, water, everything. You're even experimenting with, I don't know how much I can say, with barley literally grown on Raasay, Braga, Concerto, Escria, incredible stuff. Just super exciting for the future, right? Sorry, Alistair, it's too much. My head is exploding now because Rassi is only one of 72 new distilleries in the space of 30 years. Oh my goodness, and if all of these distilleries build in similar layers, albeit a different take on the complexities and variation that you're building in, I mean, it's exciting. If you're able to just detach yourself as a whiskey botherer and just say, okay, I'll take the ones that I fancy, I'll take the ones that I try, the ones that I like, fine. But there's got to be more concerns that it's worth kind of spending a wee bit of time talking about. You from a business perspective, competing for shelf space, competing for mind share, competing for, in terms of, wanting to present the best product that you can and succeeding and achieving that. So recognition out there from the community, from folk who are write about whiskey and talk about whiskey, who offer awards and all of these things. It must be a concern for you. So if I was to say to you, given where we are today, with all of those new whiskies spilling onto the market, are you not watching it and saying, who's going to buy my whiskey? Yeah.
So I mean, the reality, as you've said already and said in your intro, is the physical shops, there's only so much shelf space. That's a fact. And wherever you go in the world, that's a fact. But there's also a massive halo effect. So I remember when we started distilling in September 2017, I was thinking to myself, we're probably about 12 months behind the curve here. We're probably about 12 months behind, because I thought, this is it. There's been 7 new distilleries this year. We're kind of a bit behind the curve.
7.
However, here we are.
Yeah.
But what it does is there is a halo effect. There's a halo effect for everyone else in the Scotch whisky industry because it creates excitement. I've met some fantastic people. I've been some fantastic distilleries out with Scotland as well. And hopefully we're working with people. There will be collaborations because it creates interest. Now, I don't think this boom that we're in at the minute for Scotch whisky would be happening without that interest. You know, I feel for Aaron, I felt for Aaron back in the day because there was not that.
They were too early. They were the new distillery before it was.
Again, there
it was
wasn't
odd
there
to be a new
wasn't-
distillery, right?
They're just even Scotch itself wasn't exciting as it is
Yes.
now.
Yep.
So big plus. You can tell I'm an optimist guy.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
plus, halo effect, lots of interesting things happening, people bouncing off each other, people watching what's happening, everyone knowing that you can't sit back and go, oh, we've done it, we've made a single malt. It's about you have to make better. You have to be striving to do more, but you also need to have a focus. So as a master distiller, blender, whatever you want to call it, it is very, very easy for me to get very excited and start doing lots of fantastic things. So we do have to have a focus. And I believe that's a big point.
Clarity of messaging, market expectation, building your brand, playing with the small scale releases, but building a core brand to allow you to experiment and play.
And what we do and what we want to do is create interest. But by having them this year, by doing those 6 single cask bottlings, and this came from COVID and doing the virtual tastings that we did. And we didn't have whiskey then. We had cask samples.
Yeah.
But it was a deconstruction. At that point, it wasn't deconstruction of anything because we hadn't made it.
Yeah.
But now, when you do that, it's a deconstruction.
A pre-construction.
It was a pre-construction. It was our vision. It's what we set out to make. But now, you can sit and go, so Alistair, what are these red wine casks about? And I can go, well, here's a single cask export wine at 4 years old. What do you think?
I implore anyone, and I've come here with, I was hoping to be wooed. I implore anyone that's in the same camp as me that struggles with red wine cask maturation or finishing to try one of these Raasay red wine casks blind. Do it blind.
Yeah.
Alex, from Alex the Hogsheads, gifted me a gorgeous little pot, a little ceramic pot for blind tasting whiskey. I wish I'd had it. I'll maybe grab it a wee bit later so I can show you. Pour something like that into these, so you can't see the colour, you don't know what you're sipping, and alongside your favourite other fruity whiskies. It's nuts. I mean, you have to contrast this glass against something that's not red wine to see any kind of that those pinky hues. They are so subtle, so integrated is the wine cask, this European oak cask, and these examples that you're left with a fresher, sweeter take on a red wine maturation. I am absolutely sold. Now, there are other ones out there. I love long row red wine casks, oftentimes, when I can get them. The Green Spot, Chateau, Leoville Barton, the Montelena. These are things that I like because I think that these are well done. Some red wine finishes for me, if I pick up a Indie and it's a Dillion 14 finished in just says finished in a red wine, you know, it's a try before you buy for me because my palate has taught me that that's not what I have learned how to enjoy yet. This is not that. This is a different take on it. And I think it's compelling. And I also would go as far to say that at close to 4 years old, this is not what we know 4-year-old whiskey to be. So when we say this is whiskey that's good for 4 years, I think this is just good whiskey, incidental of its age. It's definitely one of those examples that I talk about in the vPub. Amazing. We need another one. What other example do we have here? And I'll grab something in the chat. Scotch in the Bayou, Leanne, of course. Leanne's here as well. Wonderful to have you, Leanne. Slant to you all. I'm loving this conversation. I'm officially off work. So I have Rassi in my glass, counting the days till I'm there. She's coming to see Alistair.
Yes, I'm going to be here too.
Fantastic, Leanne. Wonderful to have you, and I hope you're doing well. Whisky Games Matthew saying, are the Bordeaux oak casks smaller than standard barrels?
Bigger, yeah. So
smaller than a hoggy, bigger than a barrel?
Smaller than a hoggy, so 250 litres hogsheads, and barrel, standard barrel, 190 litres. So a barrique would be 220, 225.
Yeah.
So yeah, bigger than a standard barrel.
Yeah. Difficult if when you see them in isolation, it's difficult to gauge the size. If it's a dirty cask, it somehow looks a wee bit smaller. When it's a clean, bright cask, it looks a wee bit bigger. I don't know. But when you actually see them together, you can see the girth, you can see the scale, you can see the size looking a wee bit different there. Can we ask Alistair why the core range is specifically 46.4? I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think we want to also talk about in the same breath then, because Alistair does not chill filter. He's bottling on site here.
Yeah.
Chill filtration equipment does not exist there. But you do have a different take on part of the process that I haven't come across anywhere else. So let's talk about that in the same breath as the bottling choice of. By the way, the one I've just sipped is 52%.
Yeah.
But the core range, the Nashia, is 46.4.
46.4. Yeah. Excuse me. Apologies for that.
You need some beer.
Absolutely do. So 46. We want to be over 46 because we don't chill filter. So being higher than 46 also prevents the hazing effect.
Yes.
That you would be one of the reasons why you would chill filter. Sorry. And the 46.4, basically, lots of different dilutions. What does it work best at? That's where we ended up, 46.4. The water, I think you were alluding to. So we have a reverse osmosis.
This is exactly what I'm still processing this thing.
So our borehole water is absolutely fine for the process, and absolutely fine for cask reduction.
Yep.
But obviously, it's our own well. It's mineral rich. Those minerals are going to form salts and react with the fatty acids and the proteins. If that happens, they're going to precipitate out. And you end up with, crud at the bottom of the bottle. Now, for people, and I imagine most people in here, that, and it's kind of okay.
Whiskey botherers don't really mind such things, right?
But
yeah,
we want a very bright spirit, which you can see. Hopefully you can see.
So, despite the fact it's unchill filtered, you want that whiskey aesthetic. You want it to be bright.
Yeah.
And there's okay.
So we use our well water, but we put it through reverse osmosis. So.
So what we're essentially doing is removing the anchor points for these.
Yeah. So basically, what you want to do is you want to remove those things that will react with the bigger complex flavour compounds in the whiskey. That's another reason why you don't want them to come out suspension.
Yes.
Because they're flavour. So we put our borehole water through the recipe.
That was a wee giveaway, but I'm going to put a highlighter over that comment. Sorry to disrupt you. There's flavour. Okay, good. Please continue.
Okay. So osmosis, basically, if you have a barrier, a membrane that water can pass through, and you put water on one side and you put salt water on the other, the water naturally moves across to try and dilute the concentration of salt. So that's osmosis. Right? It's a natural process. It happens. It's biological. It happens in plants, happens in animals. It's a natural thing that water moves across to try and reduce it, to reach equilibrium.
Yep. To hydrate. Yep.
Okay. Reverse osmosis is exactly that. It's the reverse of that. So you forcing water through from one side and leaving the salt behind.
Whatever crystals, whatever sodium, whatever it is.
So if you like, you get pure water.
Okay.
And that's what we use when we bottle.
And that so far, it was interesting because I think that we had a particularly cold bottle in our hands. Maybe it was not you I was talking about it, and I picked it up and we talked about this. So you have not had a problem with hazing or transport, or you've not had an issue.
It's all of those things together. It's not any of the one thing. So it's being over 46%. Of
course,
using the arrow water, but we do all of that. Yes, we want it to be bright and clear and shiny, but we don't want to lose any of the flavour and any mouthfeel that we do, or the mouthfeel.
Yeah. And so the reverse of osmosis doesn't have a negative effect to the texture.
I think it only has a positive effect. I'm not right.
Okay, because it's super interesting to consider that, especially when we're in an era now where there is a traditional sense of what whiskey is made. it's not, it doesn't make it bad whiskey, poor quality whiskey, but there's a way with whiskey used to be made traditionally. We talk about the blends being king and things like that. We're in an era of whiskey today we're in a different environment of whiskey enjoyment, I think. So it was super interesting to touch upon that. Can our friend here explain, says Justin Wan, the flavour molecules coming out of suspension and how it affects smell and taste? I think you maybe just did that. I think how it affects smell and taste is going to be contextual based on the whiskey you're drinking.
Yeah. I mean, what you don't want to happen is these big long chain salts. Basically, they become so big that they can't stay in suspension and they come out. So, and some of those are flavour compounds. So you just don't want that to happen. So you can avoid it. One way you can avoid what happens is take the flavour, the proteins and the fatty acids out by chill filtering.
Yeah.
That's one way of doing it. But if you want to leave them there, you just don't want the salts there. You don't want the minerals there that are going to cause that reaction to happen.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're taking them out. We're doing everything we can to prevent them accidentally precipitating it.
It is interesting when you talk, because when we're talking about minerals, and it's just to hear that, just to know that, just to understand it better is fascinating. Just to comprehend and actually have a product that we can potentially taste it in. So let's talk about the idea that we've got this product here. We've got this thing that has been in earnest and in very good faith, and I feel it more than just hear it and see it. I do. It's out there, and you want to get that product out there. You're doing the festivals. You're doing Nuremberg this weekend. Excited to welcome you out there as well. Amazing. You're doing virtual. You're hosting people here. You're trying to get the product on there on retail shelves. From my perspective, and this is the crux of what I'm speaking about. If I imagine in my head right now walking into my local bricks and mortar whiskey retailer, Good Spirits Company in Bath Street, let's say, and I look at the shelf from 2016, even as recently as that, and I go in here today in 2023 and I look at that same shelf, both shelves are full. Yeah, there's a good solid choice there. We've never been, as long as I've been sipping whiskey, I've never felt short of choice. There's always something more to explore, okay? I see a different range of whiskies in 2023, Alistair, than I did in 2016. Let me just summarise it before I throw it over to you. Okay. I see independent bottlers still, with a different mix of casks available. I see some recognisable brands and labels, let's say incumbent players, a fraction of what I used to see. I see different things. I see vibrant things on the shelf. I see a section of Loch Lee with 4 different coloured labels on it. I see fantastic, innovative things they can't even call single malt coming from Loch Lomond. I see different, not just the core range from Rassi, but different things popping up. I see Ardnamurchan's core range alongside a single cask and a Madeira cask, occasionally if we're lucky. This is me, and this is where the whiskey is made. I know it's going to take a while for this transition to make it out into the whiskey botherers, bricks and mortar places around the world. I know that the supply chain takes a wee bit of time to pick up. Where are you? How is this happening? What is causing this massive change? Is it new distilleries? Is it the incumbents vacating the space? Is it a bit of both?
I think whiskey is one of those fascinating things where, if you look at marketing is there primarily to create brand loyalty. That's why we do it. That's why we see Coca-Cola
repeatability, reassurance that it's a quality product.
Absolutely is that. But I've always thought whiskey, Scotch whiskey in particular, is slightly different. In that people are going to be, if I use the word promiscuous, but people are going to want to try different things. People do want to have not just one whiskey on the shelf, but different whiskies on the shelf. And so that whole halo effect that I was talking about, that interest that's generated is as much generated by the people drinking the whiskey as it is generated by the new distilleries. So would we have built a distillery on Raasay if we didn't think there was interest? Probably not. So which is chicken egg? Which drives it? Now it's actually both.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit of a fervour at the minute, and we all know about that, and there's negative sides to that fervour. We all know about that as well. But it helps breed. And I think, going back to your question, who's going to buy all the whiskey? What we do have to make sure is that the fervour on both sides, by new distilleries, existing distilleries, and the whiskey drinkers, is nurtured in as positive a way as possible. Because between us, we can direct that. And everyone knows of the cyclical boom and bust of whiskies in the past and all the rest of it. And there's nothing to say that that won't happen again. But I feel that with current technology, with events like this, with groups like this, people react so much more quickly. The feedback that we get, I told you a story last night about the Tweed Ale and listening to negative stuff, but trying to react to it in a positive way and make it better.
Just to paraphrase the story, Alistair faithfully tried to recreate one of his grandfather's ledger recipes, which called on sherry, a gallon of sherry to be added to the recipe for colour. Yeah. Literally, this is 100+ years ago.
1899, don't need to worry about it.
19th century whiskey recipe, they were adding sherry for colour. And Alistair's, it's not allowed in SWA regs. The only thing I'm allowed to do is to add colour. Yeah. You go out into the marketplace and the reaction immediately is, why did you add colour? And then you're like...
Quite correctly. I had my rationale for doing it, but it was correctly pointed out. And by the third of release of Tweed Ale, it was non-chill filter.
Or we're going back 15 years ago now, but I mean, it's still a lesson to learn, right?
Yes. I mean, it's a life lesson, though, isn't it? Yeah. You've got to listen.
Yeah. What you've taught yourself now and what you're teaching us is that when you invest in casks, you don't need sherry by the gallon or Pack Sarette or E150A. No. The colour of your whiskies are superb. This is the darkest colour that we have.
This is the unpeated Chinkapin single cask, 52%. So yeah, that's all natural.
And less than 4 years old.
Yeah, that's a 2019 cask. So yeah,
maybe in the order of close to 4 years old.
It's a probably January cask, February cask.
I don't know if whether your preference is a sherry cask or a American oak cask or whatever it may be. If you like a sweet whiskey that would go, actually this would be an aperitif too, but it's a perfect after dinner. But the sweetness, not to be like pudding, not to be toffee, not to be caramel, but the sweetness to be a fruity, ripe fruit, sugary sweetness that's somehow Moorish. I think it's the fruit balance in here that makes it that Moorish thing.
Yeah.
The thing that makes me excited is that we're in a position now that we can look at. You mentioned Darren, how they were just a wee bit ahead of the curve. They had to sell themselves as a new distillery when nobody wanted to touch a new distillery. That's flipped very quickly. That's flipped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Arran are one of the most celebrated producers because of their policy, the way they've moved and the way they've targeted, the way they're going for natural product. That people are loving this. You will not take as long as they did to catch up. You're already there. I think it's sobering for me to come and have to, I'm going to go out and I'm going to explore these and I'm going to share these whiskies. People need to taste how deliciously dense these things are at such a young age. The future is an exciting space. However, it remains the case that we need to talk about, there are producers out there, this isn't the place to talk about it name by name, but there are producers out there and the community are very aware of it, that we used to be able to buy yesterday for reasonable money, or things that we decided that were good value to us, whiskey that we loved. Today, they're gone. Suddenly, these things have been labelled as precious. maybe they've had a little bit of marketing enhancement to them, some rebranding, something like that, and they've been taken away from us. Not because we can't buy them anymore, because we can't afford them anymore. You're putting your whiskey out, despite these not a cheap way to make it, the cask policy, the casks that you're buying and everything, you're managing to put it out there at £55. I feel that this would go, this £55 whiskey, this is a different one, this is a wee bit more expensive, right? But these whiskies that we're tasting would go toe to toe with any of those incumbents that have gone off and left. I feel like it's leaving the retail space, whether it's bricks and mortar, whether it's the virtual space, there's a wake there. Are you able to somehow leverage that wake? Are you able to, who's Rassi's customer? Who are you selling it to?
I mean, we've got several different demographics of customers, and I think it's very difficult to see. And it's something that we do and are doing actual proper research into to understand who our customers are. Clearly, because that as a business, that's what you have to do.
Yep.
But we have people who come to Raasay, visit the distillery, and buy the whiskey in the shop. We have people who buy directly from us online. We have people who go to specialist whiskey retailers, like the very good shops that you've mentioned. And then we have our export markets as well. And every export market has a different nuance, has a different, so even when you start talking country by country, there are different preferences within those countries. So all of that has to be considered.
Okay.
It's a big thing, and we all know you can't be all things to all people. You can't do that, and if you start trying to be that, you become mediocre. So you just
maybe
have
diluting
to
it. Yeah, sure.
But back to the question again: who's going to buy all this whiskey? Probably if you go with a light unpeated whiskey to the Scandinavian markets, it's not going to get picked up.
Clear.
So who's going to buy all this whiskey? I think that's how you've got to think. You've got to think market by market. You've got to think about what you're doing. You've got to think about the story, how that story translates, what people resonate with. All of that clearly has to be thought about all the way through. So for us, I always talk about the blank sheet paper, talk about designing the liquid, designing the process, designing the bottle, the packaging. The design element, that thought process, I think you need to take it through every element.
So what you're speaking about there, if you go to Scandinavia with a lightly unpeated whiskey, that's probably going to sell some, but not very much, not very big. So you go to Scandinavia with something that's heavily peated, suddenly I understand that that's a very specific example. It makes fantastic sense. What you're talking about is the whiskey botherer. You're talking about the whiskey enthusiast. You're talking about the whiskey. Probably the person who's going to buy your Rassi and love it is not putting it on a shelf with only Rassi.
So there's probably another analogy that's worth using, and that is like if you look at tech, Apple, all of these people, right? Early adoption, right? So you can't create a brand without early adoption. So the whiskey community, the people we're currently talking to, all of us are naturally early adopters because we're excited and interested in all the rest of it. And from that, from their engagement and their opinion and their feedback, other people then buy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to ignore that, particularly as a new brand, very dangerous things to you. For instance, if you went straight into a supermarket shelf without any early adopters, that's not a long term.
It's a dust collector.
You have to build, you have to grow.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about collaboration and things like that. We're actually speaking to the same people, Alistair. I think that's why we're sitting here together to do this broadcast tonight, because my audience is those people. We are at the kind of exploratory end of things. Mm-hmm. We're led by flavour and the flavour chase, and we want more things that bring the good quality, the experience and things like that. What we are both talking about here, again, to broad brush it, I think, is to grow the understanding, grow the education, grow the community of people who appreciate whiskey, not as a drink, but as a flavour, as an experience, as something to remind us of what it is to be alive, to be mortal, to be, you know, it's if we can grow that understanding and if we can grow that whiskey audience, if we can get more people in, I worry today about the way that certain sectors of the whiskey market are going, that even the people who are a wee bit mature can afford to stay in there, maybe keep their skin in the game and keep buying their favourite whiskies. I worry about younger folk coming in. Where do they join? Where do they get involved? I think if you were to tell them at £55 for a bottle of whiskey, you need to contextualise it and tell them what they get for their £55 to realise that that's actually quite good value. I worry about what's happening in certain areas of the market, and I think I want to applaud all the new whiskey producers out there for coming into that space. It's almost like, no, we've got your back.
Yeah.
With that space, that wake, that vacuum that you're finding of where the whiskies used to be that you loved of yesterday, the horizon is full of opportunity and new flavours for you to discover. Also want to add another thing as well. Before we even go on to talk about Alistair's new projects, the man's restless. Before we even touch that, is to talk about scale. You've touched on it without me picking up on it. If we talk about Rassi's 180,000 litres, what does that equate to in casks? Can you even do that?
Yeah, well, it's about 1,500 casks a year.
Right, 1,500 casks a year. That's probably one of the larger distilleries that are existing malt producers. It's probably a week's production to some of them, right? 1 week.
Yep.
So if we take Raasay, you're not tiny. 180,000 litres per annum is actually pretty respectable. It's pretty decent. There's lots out there that's smaller. There's many out there that are larger of the new distilleries. But if we take all of these new distilleries and we add them all up together, we still can't even compete with the capacity of the expansions that we've seen at maybe the Glenfiddichs, the Macallans, the Glenlivets. They're all up at 15, 20, north of 20 million litres per annum. So when we contextualise it in that way, the markets, as we've touched upon, are very, very different. This is super granular, super varied, choice, flavour, differentiation all over the place. It's different. It's still malt whiskey, it's single malt Scotch whiskey, and none of it's, bad or some of it is genuinely, factually unaffordable for us today, and I think it's a problem for us all. This is not what we're looking at here. Variety, focus on quality, investment, and I think both of us are sitting side by side each other tonight to try and grow that understanding, to try and grow the community, grow the people of the early adopters, as you mentioned. I'm hinting it. I want to jump in here. I want to make sure that I'm catching some of these comments, and I've not been as interactive, but that's okay because we're here together. Danny is saying that's a shame. I'd rather sherry added than E150. You and I both. Danny, absolutely. A gallon of sherry versus just fake it up. But we'd rather just see the colour of the whiskey and appreciate for what it is, and not for it to be doctored in any way, honestly speaking. And if we want a dark whiskey, but then we're going to have to pay for an expensive cask, or to bring us that darker whiskey, or at least accept that it's a very active cask, a first full cask or something. Falsgraf, Klaus, good to see you. I hope I'm going to see you in Limburg this weekend. The trick may be to excite many people. Well, you take the words out of my mouth. Exactly that thing, to get more and more people to understand that there's education behind this gorgeous, gorgeous liquid that is, malt whiskey, whether it's made in Scotland or anywhere. And that's the thing to remember. The explosion's happening everywhere. It's incredible. The art will not be to cater, he goes on to say, to cater to luxury brands, but still have customers who are aware of value and actual costs. It's all about education. And that's why I appreciate this access. It's not typical. You're aware that you need to have your product opened, shared, and talked about by enthused and passionate people who are educated and can do it in a way. Almost we're acting as a community of almost like mini ambassadors for you. But we can only do that if we grow to love the product. We can only love the product if it gives us a good quality experience compared to the other. You're speaking to people that are genuinely whiskey promiscuous. We have hundreds of whiskies in our armory of experience, right? I know it's different. Roy, you've got 10 minutes to keep it under 2 hours. Oh my goodness. I don't think that's happening.
A quiz to go.
All right, let's there will be a quiz tonight, Alistair, by hook or by crook. Listen, I do want to talk about this concept that, and I'm going to just summarise this thing because of time. Alistair wanted a Borders distillery. You wanted a distillery to match your heritage of whiskey, your family's heritage, specifically your grandfather, of blending whiskey, of Coldstream, Tweeddale, all that's the ledger, the famous ledger. I've got photos of it. I took lots of photos. I'm going to share them with patrons. Fabulous things. Those recipes are just, with your blessing, I'll share them,
absolutely.
of course.
No, please do.
But whiskey had other plans for you. Sorry,
Yep.
but things happened. People got involved. Suggestions were made. You were like, I'm not sure. You came here. You looked at this place, and you went, I'm sure. I'm in.
Absolutely sure.
Yeah. So Rassi had to come first. Rassi is now reaching a nice cadence. It's just ticking in its thing. There's exciting things happening. Kira's going to be out there in Limburg at the weekend talking to everybody about Rassi and letting people try it, hopefully, and lots of festivals coming up. It's appearing on shelves in more and more markets all the time. But you're not ready to hang out your boots yet.
No.
But you're not shooting back to the Borders yet. You've
Not
got
yet.
some more work to do.
Absolutely.
Whiskey's got other plans for you. Can I bring this up, Alistair, here? I'm going to bring up some images here I want to share with you, because when I showed the overlays at the start of the stream tonight, I showed everyone just how many distilleries there are, and it's going to block me out here, but that's okay. People don't need to see me. The green and the yellow are distilleries that are making whiskey right now today. The green have released and the yellow have yet to release, but the red that you see here are work in progress distilleries. Okay, that's distilleries that have planning, have investment, have a mature state of planning, work in progress distilleries. Okay, so we take that away. We're going to share now the Machrihanish project. That's part of you. So everyone's fallen in love with Campbelltown as a region. J&A Mitchell's distilleries of Springbank producing Hazelburn, Springbank and Longrow, and also Glengyle producing Kilkerran. Fabulous. The renaissance, you and I have been enthused about Glen Scotia.
Absolutely. Amazing.
Enjoying it, just seeing what's happened there down in Campbelltown and Glen Scotia. And then behind that, we've got the Dalriatas, we've got J&A Mitchell's plans, and we've got, as well as other muted projects out there that are circled with those red circles, we've got a project under your stewardship right now called Machrihanish. So I'm going to put this on a kind of full screen right now so that we can I'm going to share some snapshots, some visualizations to show that this is not fag packet or, let's say, sketched on a napkin type plans. This is very, very real. So I'll share these for those of you that might not have seen it yet. And you can, hopefully people can still hear us okay, and you can tell us what we're looking at here. So let's look at an overview. Look at this one.
Yeah, that's our still hall looking out over a field of barley on a typical Machrihanish, slightly misty day.
Can I comment on the stills here?
Yep.
I saw your wee elegant spirit still upstairs.
Yep.
I think it's a very cute little thing. Those are fat-assed stills.
Yeah, they're not actually. So one of the things that clearly makes Campbelltown whiskey a Campbelltown whiskey is small stills. So with the Machrihanish project, we're looking at
scale. These are small stills.
Yeah.
But I'm speaking about the dimensions here. They're almost triangular, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of size, the two wash stills will be 6,250 litres, and the spirit stills will be 4,000 litres. So only
a wee bit bigger.
Just a wee bit bigger than
a third bigger than yours.
Just a touch. And the reason we've got two sets and not one 12,500 litre still and an 8,000 litre spirit still is to have small stills, but to be able to produce two different styles of new make spirit at the same time. So this is our architect's impression. The line arms aren't to what they will be. The line arms will be configured differently on each set of stills to be a lighter and a heavier at the same time. Filled into casks separately, matured separately, not to be brought back together until it matured.
Okay, fantastic. Learning lessons from how you're doing things at Rassi and adding a wee bit of differentiation as well. Here we've got just a generic kind of warehouse slot here, so there is an intention to have
This
some
is
kind of-
actually quite interesting. This is the milking parlour currently at Jury Farm, and that's going to be converted into a little mini dunnage warehouse for private cask sales, so people can come and see their cask.
Fantastic. So this is a converted farm that we're building.
Yes,
here.
so all of the Jury Farm farmhouse buildings are being kept, all of the stone buildings are being kept and repurposed for. So instead of being a dairy, it's going to be a little dunnage warehouse.
Here we have a courtyard scene.
Yeah, so this is to the north of the farm building. There is a courtyard, and ultimately we will upstairs have two small en suites.
Accommodation, yeah.
Just two, and then downstairs. Initially, the downstairs of the farmhouse being used for a reception area, a shop, and a tasting room, because our intention is to phase in the visitor centre at a later date. So this allows us to welcome people early on before we have single malt.
Yep.
And talk about the experience, and hopefully make it a special experience in visiting until such time we have single malt and a visitor centre, maybe 3
And the
4
need
years
to
time.
expand. That makes perfect sense.
And this is looking from the Glasgow Road driving into Campbelltown. If you pass the road that goes off to signposted to the airport in Machrihanish Dunes.
So we'd be looking to our right-hand side here.
Looking to the right-hand side. That's the road that you will come into the distillery. But this is driving along the Glasgow Road. And this was for the planning application to show what the visitor centre, which is up on the highest part of the farm, because we have 360-degree views of the hills to the south, the hills to the north, the Atlantic Ocean, and Campbelltown. So hopefully, in years to come, you'll be sat in that visitor centre enjoying a dram, being able to look at those views.
Sounds fantastic. And again, I think you've learned some lessons from doing that very thing, enhancing the views that you have here at Raasay. And here's a slightly different take. So what we're actually seeing is the building almost
Snaking up the hill.
Exactly, just
Yeah.
to the contours.
So Loop Architects, Danish architects, Morton, who did this design, and his team also did Stoning Distillery.
You took 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, I did Stoning as a picture in the quiz, and you can see the DNA.
Yeah. And we really like that. And so this is what's currently the farm road into the farmhouse. It's going to take you past the still house. So bring you in, and to the right, currently, is a field of barley. So we've now planted our second crop of barley on Jury Farm.
For Machrihanish.
So last year we harvested, and it's now currently being malted, about 20 tonnes of it was laureate barley, but grown on Jury Farm, grown regeneratively. That's now a way to be malted. It will come here to Rassi, so there may be a possibility to have Jury Farm barley before there's a Machrihanish.
I told you he's restless. Absolutely incredible. And I have to say that thank you for the lack of inclusion of a fake pagoda. I don't know. I do like a pagoda. I love a pagoda as anyone else.
Pagoda on a kiln.
Yeah, but an operating pagoda.
And then this just an impression of what that initial shop reception area might look like. And that's actually in the farm building itself.
Okay, this is the initial shop. The first, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the initial.
And I think that's
Welcome.
there's
and that's just walking through into the courtyard. So the shops on the left. What was the dairy with the private cask to the right.
And finally, one of my favourite images coming up here. This is actually quite a nice one because there's quite a neat sense of airiness and scale here that we perhaps didn't see from the other images.
Yeah, that's the visitor centre looking north to the Glasgow.
Is this a longer term thing, or this will be?
That's a longer term element. It will be. So the focus is getting in the distillery up and running and get spirit into
and extending over time.
Yeah.
And another aspect of it,
the still house.
Yeah, this is the opposite of what we've seen from the outside looking in. Fantastic. I think this is my favourite image
Yeah.
here. And there are echoes of Borrowdale House here. There are echoes of Raasay in this. The way you've kind of built on the existing buildings and been sympathetic to it at the same time of bringing something that's clearly modern. So where are we in terms of timescales? I mean, it's all very well giving people a teaser of a new Campbelltown distillery, but I've put that as a red circle in my representation.
And quite rightly so. So again, we've designed the process. We gave the process design to Loop Architects. They designed the building around the process. We've submitted that to planning, Guyland Butte Council. That was validated not that long ago, which means it's now in consultation. It's now in the public domain, so you can go and find any of these pictures on their website. We're starting to have feedback from various stakeholders that have to be consulted, and potentially we may get a planning decision in May, June time. The planning decisions don't necessarily mean approval. It might come with conditions, and it probably will come with conditions, I would think. So then we have to review that. So given all of that, I think realistically we might break ground on Jury Farm by the end of this year. And then our plan is for an 18-month build. So that means we may hopefully be distilling in 2025.
So there we go. And if anybody needs to, anybody's thinking that, oh, that's a long way away, that's a long way away. I remember hearing of a plan for a distillery on Rassi. And it only feels like a couple of years ago, but here I am sitting here in a very mature place with a nice rhythm, cadence, a gorgeous team, community, family feel around it, making whiskey that is, and I'll admit it, clearly better than I had originally judged it for. So when the time goes as quickly as that, and you're thinking, oh, well, that's actually going to be it. We're looking at 2025 here, Roy. We're looking at 2026 or something. You know, it's going to be quicker than we imagine. And in the meantime, we're still dealing with the amount of variety that we've got out there. It's fantastic to have these Campbelltown distilleries on the horizon. It's really such an exciting time. And it's also exciting, and we don't need to go into this topic, but Alistair constantly talks about openness, collaboration, talking with your peer producers and providers. It's nuts that you would think that everybody's competing with each other and hiding secrets. That's not happening. It's whiskey encourages us to be much more open and be like, oh, how are you doing? How did you? Oh, wow, that's amazing, and things. And it's hearing this sense of kind of all in it together that can only happen when you're at this scale, driven by this passion at this moment in time. It's a privilege to be witnessing it. Danny Hevington's bought me a dram. Just that I'd chime in to say the lapel mics have worked great. Great evening from you both. Fantastic. Usually the audio is it's great to hear that, Danny. The audio is always usually a big challenge. So the only question left, how long do you think that ever, and I know that there's no telling tales out of school here or anything, do you think that Coldstream Tweeddale, do you think that border thing might ever happen at some point in the future?
It's still an aspiration.
I see the twinkle in his eye. I don't know that any of you guys do it as well. And it's the same one that I've seen every time I've kind of just thrown the idea around there. Listen, you've got a lot of work to do. You've still got work to do at Raasay.
Absolutely.
You've got a hell of a lot of work to do at Machrihanish.
We do.
I hope you have the energy, health and drive. Whiskey will bring it. Whiskey will provide it in order to see that thing. Alex, can you bring that paper? No, it's already over here. I tried really hard to sit with you last night and rinse a bottle of whiskey. We did our very, very best. He brought us a bottle of whiskey. And he said, this is my Tweeddale 28-year-old, right? And there was this much left in the bottom. And I said, that's the last of it. Let's enjoy it, right? So we're sharing it around with the people that were here. 28-year-old whiskey that is super close to Alistair's heart. So that's the last of it. Let's rinse it. Let's finish it. There's a wee dribble left.
Mm-hmm.
The concept being that you could enjoy that wee dribble left on your own, and that would be the end of it. But you don't need to worry. I brought you this because there's a story behind this.
You start.
Here we have I completely intact, untouched. The foil is still absolutely intact. Bottle of that very same Tweeddale. And this is not me being a Crawley bumlick. This is not me being Alistair. I wanted to tell a story, and there's a reason that I'm going to leave this to you, and this is here to replace that dead bottle.
Okay.
Alistair is a barfly. He watches and hangs out with us. Not always vocal in the time, he's maybe watching in the background. And 2 years ago, he heard that I'd tried to buy a grain of truth or something, one of the Tweeddale expressions, and I'd accidentally been sent, nothing to do with Alistair, but I'd actually accidentally been sent the wrong product from Amazon. And I couldn't use it for the session that I meant it for that night. He overheard this, and he sent this to me as an apology, saying that it was partly his fault that it had happened. I said, I'm going to tuck that aside for a special moment, for a special reason, for us. But look at this, is the cut of it.
No, we've got to open this.
And I am very, very glad that I kept it intact and I kept it sealed until I heard the words from him. I'm going to dig out that Tweeddale. I've only got a wee drop left. So this, Alex, go and get glasses. Get glasses for people.
Sorry, right. Even gloves.
Perfect, right? It glugs.
Oh, and that's my great-grandfather on the back of the bottle.
So I'll hold it up to the camera. The camera should be able to focus on this. You might just see a man in the background there. And that is, maybe doesn't want to focus, but you have to view it through the amber glow of the bottle here. And that is Alistair's grandfather, the man whose handwriting I've been reading today.
Yep.
Shot with all the recipes, that ledger. It's amazing. It's the staff salaries in it. It's got recipes of premium, recipes of budget entry level whiskies that people can just buy and drink, and it just makes for fascinating reading. Interestingly, the premium one only used 20% grain or something.
Roy,
Alistair,
thank you.
well, thank you. Slanjava. I'm going to, off to the right, I've got a runner here. I've got Alex the Hogsheads, who's not only a Raasay employee, but he's also a patron. He's a barfly, he's part of our community as well. I'm going to ask Alex if he can grab as many people that wants to get involved in the quiz at the end. Have we covered everything? I think more or less. And I think, you know what, I've got the impression that if we haven't, there'll be time in the future, whether it's Macrahanish, whether it's that kind of horizon type thing about something in the borders, you just never know. All that we're seeing just now is a wee twinkle in somebody's eye, but...
One thing I can think of that I intended to say is we need to get Chris Brown up here, who didn't
Chris Brown?
We need to get here. So,
Chris, cheers to you, fella. He didn't make it with the Musselburgh boys and Gregor McQueen in the camper van last year, but he has been here. He's visited, and he's a constant evangelist he's been here, and he was here ahead of me, and he evangelized about it. Gregor came. Yeah. Now, and I have to say, a lot of the product that you pour and share isn't Gregor's typical cup of tea. Took Gregor a while to become somebody who liked a peated whiskey, for example, and things. And he left here. I think his highlight of his Caledonian run experience was perhaps, he might suggest it was the Raasay experience. And I get it. I come in. So who's getting involved in this quiz? Come on, we're going to have a quiz at the end. There's a few more coming. You need to bring, unless you're going to be standing, you need to bring in stools. Or bring in forever. I'm going to get a stool for Charles. This is an on-theme vPub quiz at the end. It is a Rassi quiz. Please stay around. Please stay around and enjoy this quiz. Everybody from all the folk from Rassi are going to be bullied into participating with you. Best on location to date, says Mr. CJL. Good to see you, buddy. He's saying, in my opinion, he's saying best on location to date. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. And Falsgraf is saying, Roy, I'm not going to take part in the quiz tonight. Oh, nice, Klaus. It's not like for you to be afraid, but I know you've got plans for Limburg at the weekend. That's the issue. But shall meet in Limburg on Saturday and Sunday. Fantastic, Klaus. I'm looking forward to shaking your hand again, buddy. I'll look out for the hat in the crowd. Time for a dram. Gregory saying, I absolutely loved my time at Rassi, and I promised to myself that I'll get back and whittle away a full day and night when you're watching the weather change. A dram for every hour. I don't think anybody else is invited on that trip. Right? That seems very selfish. Good to have you. David Brody saying, great blether, Aquavite, Roy and Alistair. David Brody from Bunnahaven, of course.
Oh, well.
Good to have you, David. Simon Ray saying, first vPub for far too long and superb as ever. I love the focus on one of my favourite distilleries. Thanks to you and Alistair. Thanks to you, Simon Ray, and all of the folks down at the Nottingham Whisky Association. Good to see you, buddy. I hope to see you in Glasgow this year, eh? Multi Angus Muncher Matthew, that's at Kinnaird Whiskies. Good to have you, Matthew. He's saying, late in because of night shift. Hope all the barflies are good. I hope you're good too as well, Matthew. It's brilliant to welcome you in whenever you get here later. Otherwise, Cal Whisky is saying, loved when I worked for Raasay. It's Cal Whisky, it's Cal Gillis then. Is it fantastic? Saying, I love when I work for Raasay. Great to see them doing well. If that is the Callum that we're thinking about, right? Callum has a fantastic YouTube channel. It's Callum Raasay. I think it's Callum with one L. I think Callum Raasay, nearly 200,000 subscribers, doing fantastic documentary style content out there. Callum, I was hoping that there was maybe an off chance to shake your hand while I was here. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow, or if not, there will be a next time, buddy. Good to have you in. Rick Johnson is saying, I am undefeated so far this week, Roy. Fair play to you, Rick. He's talking about the quiz, of course. He obviously did well in the Patreon lock-in on Sunday night. And Peter Lee is in saying, Aquavite, I'm having a great night. Finish your shift, Peter. Feet up. Get something in the glass. Maybe it's going to be a Rassi, buddy. It's nice to welcome you, and I hope you and Denise are doing well. And Black Fen is saying it's been a fascinating vPub. Thank you, Conrad. Thank you so much. And Des is saying, thanks, Roy. Great vPub on location. Thanks to you, Des. Whiskey Wine Trails. Tom is saying, I've been diligently doing my homework for the quiz, Roy. He's sipping the Rassi, right? The one that he bought local. And Dave Barnes is saying, well done. Thank you very much, Dave. And Whiskey with Molly, bring on the quiz, Aquavite. Okay, like I did promise you, we do have an on-theme.
Come on in.
Yeah, we won't have any you don't have to chat, you don't have to do anything. You've got your wee things, just bring the bar stools along. We'll get as many folk involved as you want. No, that'll be fine. We'll make it work, however many you've got, that's fine. If we've got everybody that participates in the quiz at the end knows what the A, B, C, D is all about. So everyone that's playing in the quiz tonight as well, rather than kind of competing against your own best or whatever it may be, maybe you should compete against the staff. I am suspicious, and I might be proved wrong here, and you come. We'll introduce everybody that's joining us here. Alex, hop up. Alex. How you doing? Yeah. And we were introduced yesterday. What's your name? Ailey. Ailey, come in, Ailey. Grab a seat, Ailey. Scott, and you come. Two other people. Is that Joseph. Jason?
Yeah, and Joseph.
Joseph. And Gabriel.
Gabriel, can you come in?
Two more seats. We can make it fit in. So there's space at Scott's side. And I tell you what,
I'm quite weak.
Sharon, hop down and we can fit everyone in. I'll squeeze one along. We'll all scooch up. This is what's called making it work. Try and not rip out any cables. No. You're absolutely in camera shot. Right, I'm going to run down and let everybody. Who needs one of these? Who needs one of these? Haley. Okay. So Joseph, we've not met yet.
No.
Nice to meet you, Joseph. Production, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
One of our first distillers.
One of the first distillers. A distiller, fantastic. And then I hope you're up in your knowledge. Then we've got Scott, of course. Scott is you do a lot of things. You're like my utility guy, and thank you for all your support me up today. If we've had less technical hitches than we normally have on a vPub on location, it's down to you, my friend. Thank you so much. Ailey is wonderful. Thank you all for your hospitality and your welcoming and looking after me and making sure I was looking after for everything. I'm going to come back to you, Alex, in a second. And Sharon, of course, the wonderful Sharon. Thank you so much for your welcome and hospitality. Gabriel, I hope you've got some space to squeeze in here as well.
I'm quite small. I'm sure I'll fit in somewhere.
Well, especially when there's whiskey getting poured, right?
Absolutely.
I want to point out Alex here. This is Alex the Hogsheads. He's a barfly. He's a patron. He's been around the channel for a long time. Thank you so much. And he's now, along with Gabriel. Are you just about in shot, Gabriel? Squeak. No, you're just outside. So Gabriel's front of house, looking after tours, looking after just kind of anything. It's a very small distillery here. Everybody's wearing multiple hats, jumping in and doing everything. I'll make it. I'm going to move the camera, Gabriel. You don't get away. Well,
As the resident local, I'm a bit nervous, to be honest with you.
there we go. Look at this. Everybody's in shot now. If I come around this way, will I trip over some wires or something? What are we pouring here? What are we all drinking? Is this the
Oh, I kept pouring the Tweedale.
Tweedale? I can't think of a better. Aye, no, you can't borrow it, but you can have it.
I was going to give it back.
Do you need two?
I'm going to need myself a pie, please.
Let's go. Just we can all play along. So as I was saying, rather than you competing with your best scores or you're trying to get your best ever, I think you're competing with the team. For the most part, there's always going to be a banana skin. There's always going to be an ASAC question in there. There's always going to be me being belligerent and awkward and typically vPub quiz at the end style. But it is very much Raasay themed. Good luck, everybody. Let's see if we're raising glasses after the quiz. 10 questions. They're always multiple choice. And you know the drill. When there's multiple people answering at the same time, rather than just waiting to hear what Alistair answers, everybody's going to get a countdown and they'll hold up their A, B, C towards the end. Wonderful stuff. Let's bring this in now. Let us go on. Listen, for those of you that are not going to participate in the quiz and you're going to drop out now, thank you very much for watching so far. For those picking it up in the replay, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. But those of you who are maybe thinking, I'll have a go at the quiz tonight, please stay. Because usually the questions are designed so that if you don't know it, maybe it's an interesting thing that you might have not known before. Question 1. Always starts off easy. Good luck, everybody. The Isle of Raasay Distillery is built around Borrowdale House. A fantastic place it is too. But previously, what was Borrowdale House? What was here beforehand? Was it A, a Victorian hotel, B, a wildlife sanctuary, or C, an observatory? No. Keep, hold your water. So what we're doing here is we're giving the folk that are participating live in the chat in this quiz, we're giving them the ability to answer off their own back.
There's always an observatory.
But what you're going to realise is that these are knowledgeable folk. You might work here, you might live on the island, but you're still going to be up against it. You might be amazed just how much people know about the product that you make and the place that you make it. But absolutely, I think they've kicked it out of the park on this one. Alistair, put us out of misery. 3, 2, 1. It is. Now, apparently, Georgian, Victorian.
Georgian building is strictly correct.
Georgian, but popular in Victorian times. Always settle
Indeed.
it that way. Fantastic. A Victorian house. Good luck, everyone, for the rest as we roll on in. It will get a wee bit trickier over time. Question 2. Until their own whiskey was ready to release, R&B released whiskey under which name? I'm being kind. Just the false sense of security questions. A, it was called The Waiting Game. B, it was called While We Wait. C, it was called The Long Wait. Hold your water, right? So obviously, there's some that produce gin, there's some that source whiskey and sell other whiskey, there's some that just kind of keep everything quiet for a while. You did 2. You did gin and you did While You Wait whiskey, but you're a blender. It's what you do. That's where the Tweedale, that's where R&B distillers came from. Of course, you're going to do the sourced whiskey beforehand. I got to try a glass of the gin yesterday with some tonic water in there, some orange peel in it as well, and it was gorgeous. It was fantastic. But I'm asking about what did they call the whiskey they were selling in advance of Rassi? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Everybody says it.
Certainly felt like the long wait. Yeah.
Can't wait till we get slow.
You said it now.
Pretty easy. All of you barflies, all of you wonderful whiskey folk that's tuning in, also got it absolutely right. It was called While We Wait. Interestingly, there's not a lot of While We Wait around now.
No.
It's kind of a wee bit of collectible. Some people kind of like, you can pack
I
it.
don't know that it's collectible yet, but maybe one day.
Well, it was designed as drinking whiskey, so it
was.
makes sense that there's not a lot of it hanging about.
It absolutely was. It was
While we wait, we drink.
to tell a story, lightly peated dark fruits. That's what the story was.
Perfect. Question 3. In the context of Isle of Raasay, what is Muhlenbergi? Or Muhlenbergi, depending on your preference. In the context of Raasay, what is Muhlenbergi? What is it? Is it A, an oak strain? Is it B, a yeast strain? Or is it C, a barley strain? Everybody behind us is going, oh, these are too easy. These are too easy. Don't worry. It's coming. It's coming. What is Muhlenbergi? Whisky with Molly saying in the US it's $35. He's maybe talking about the while you wait.
I would think that's why I would wait, yeah.
Good to see you, Ben. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Almost everybody is suggesting that Muhlenbergi is an oak strain over a yeast or a barley strain. And I know that an oak strain is not right. An oak species is what we should say. I'm just making the questions look tidy. 3, 2, 1. Right, okay, absolutely. Are they right, Alistair? What is it?
Oh, it's an oak species.
Yes, it's a species of oak, absolutely. And specifically, the one that's used. That's
Chinkapin.
Chinkapin oak. Exactly that. Question 4. The first widespread release, R01, was released by Rassi when? It's going to start to get a wee bit tricky. No, it will be available for on replay, so we will see you cheating and conferring afterwards. So you have to just do this. You have to go with this, okay? Was R01 the first ever widespread release from Rassi? When was it released? Spring 2020. Winter 2020 or summer 2021, the widespread release, right? Not the R01 specifically.
Not inaugural.
Not the inaugural release, yeah. We reached the halfway point, and then hopefully things are going to get a wee bit trickier. What's the prize? The winner gets another dram of the tweed. The loser has to pour it. See, everybody seems to think that this was summer 2021 when R01 came out. 3, 2, 1. Oh, we have Joseph. Joseph suggesting that winter 2020. It was June 2021.
So Joseph's thinking inaugural release, which was winter 2020.
So the inaugural. Okay, so we've got a banana skin for Joseph. We've started to lose some of our comrades.
He only made it.
He only made the whiskey. Right? You don't need to know when it's released. You're here to make it. Yeah, exactly.
He looks after the cask and the Dudley's warehouse.
Question 5. I hope you guys can see this. I appreciate that the image here is quite small. It's much bigger for the people watching and tuning in, but hopefully you can see we're looking at a distillery. Specifically, we're looking at a waterside distillery here, and I'm just going to give you 3 options.
You've taken the branding off.
And I have taken the branding off, of course. Not my first rodeo, big. Are we looking at A, Bamor? Are we looking at B, Talisker? Are we looking at C, Jura? We're looking at A, Bamor on Isla, C, Talisker on Skye, or C, Jura on the Isle of Jura. You know what you're looking at, Alistair?
Yeah.
I think there's an air of confidence coming from behind me here. Absolutely. I think we're going to see pretty positive scoring so far on the quiz too. I hope that everybody's doing quite well.
I think I've just got caught cheating in the camera there.
You got caught cheating? You're having a quick look, is that? Oh, really? In that case, Alistair, what distillery are we looking at?
I think it's Talisker.
You think we're looking at Talisker? Oh, of course, it's Talisker. On Skye, we're looking at B, we're looking at Talisker. Okay, it says Talisker on it now. It's been a while since I've been to Talisker. I was thinking of maybe making a wee detour on the way home tomorrow, but I need to get up awful early to do that. I think I'm going to enjoy these and make another excursion up in the future. Did all of you choose Talisker? Did you all? Oh, good. It's only one banana skin so far, big guy. Pressure's on. It's going to get a wee bit harder from here on in. Question 6. Which was the first malt whiskey yearbook edition to feature Isle of Raasay Distillery as a featured entry? Specifically a featured entry. So this is a rite of passage. This is a big deal. If you're featured in the malt whiskey yearbook as a distillery, only then have you arrived as a distillery. Ingvar finally listed Rassi with all the details in a specific edition of the malt whiskey yearbook. Now, you know when you were founded, you know when it was first spoke about, you know when the news came out. And you also know how the additions of the malt whiskey
Yeah.
yearbook run, which is the crucial thing.
It's crucial.
I predict banana skins. Okay. A, 2014, B, 2016, or C, 2018? When did Ingvar Rond get round to sharing as an entry Raasay as a listed distillery?
Yeah.
Which edition of the malt whiskey yearbook? I'm going to go fast this time. 3, 2, 1, commit. We do have a break. It's this time. It's just Scott that's going with it. You did. I don't know if you saw, Alistair. You're guessing here. I can tell you're guessing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think 2018 because the malt yearbook is the year. So the 2023 one comes out in 2022.
Yeah.
So I think we got actually listed. I think we were mentioned
Earlier.
but I think listed 2018.
That's why he's the gaffer. Absolutely. And Scott feels the pain. He's a bit of an
We were definitely mentioned in 2016.
It did split the crowd a little bit, but most of them worked out that it was C. Obviously, the founding year of 2017, but as you quite rightly pointed out, that's the 2018 edition by the time that they list it. Fantastic. Question 7. Where were the majority of rye casks for Rassay's inaugural release believed to be sourced? Now, I can say that I've checked the question with Alistair and asked him directly, and it concurs here, so we're in good shape. So we should be in a good place on this one. But where were they sourced from? Rye casks. Part of Nashia, there's a rye cask in there. And it's the only Quercus alba that's used in the mix currently, right? Where is it from? Is it A, it's from Woodford Reserve, B, it's from George Dickel, or C, it's from Jim Beam? Starting to get trickier? Are you feeling confident? Oh, it's an easy one. I have no idea how to make it
Joseph
jump.
better not get this one wrong.
Had a good one. And I think it's quite tough to design a quiz that the community could participate in and still feel like they can compete with the team, right? So that's the idea here. I know, but if it is now, so we'll stick to A. Says Greg in Paris feels it's Woodford Reserve. He's getting Alistair's already gone out. So 3, 2, 1. Everybody thinks it's Woodford Reserve. Most of the barflies in the lounge, of course you guys do, you think it's Woodford Reserve. You're absolutely right. Have you sourced other?
Yeah, so we've just recently started working with Sagamore Rye in Baltimore. We're hoping to build up a nice, close relationship with them. Very similar company, lot of
Synergies,
but I mean, they're only just starting to be filled, so there's another 3 years anyway before.
I need to come back and see how it's going.
Absolutely.
That right? Can I have that room?
That's it.
Fantastic. Well done, everybody. Absolutely Woodford Reserve. Question 8. Which of these new distilleries has more or less the same production capacity as Raasay? I'm going to give you a list of 3 distilleries. I'm looking for more or less the same LPA, litres per annum production capacity as Raasay. Alistair has told you earlier, if you were listening, what that capacity is. It might help you here. Is it A, Loch Lee in the Lowlands, B, Necknean in the Western Highlands, or C, Ardnamurchan, also in the Western Highlands? Which of those new distilleries has a capacity more or less within, a few thousand LPA, the same capacity? I think I hope we hammered home that capacity thing tonight. When we talk about these new distilleries, when we talk about the amount of liquid being produced for sale, the scale of what you're doing is artisanal, boutique, almost compared to some of these mass producers. So that's the scale that we're at. We mentioned it earlier. Almost everybody. Can you believe the knowledge that exists?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's great to see. Really good to see.
Right, are you going to disagree with the lounge here? 3, 2, 1. Alex is going for B. Joseph is going for a C. Okay, you're going for the. Okay. Alistair?
I'll say that I wobbled. I was thinking Nickneen, but I'm going to go Lochlee.
Alistair follows the crowd and knocks it out the park. Well done. It is Lochlee. Ardnamurchan are probably up about, I believe, about 400,000. I don't have my malt whisky yearbook on hand as well, but the answer I was looking for was Lochlee, round about the 200,000 litres per annum. Anybody that was watching the live stream with John Campbell, the vPub with John Campbell a couple of weeks ago, would have picked up on the scale where we touched upon the very similar themes and topics with John. Question 9, second from last, penultimate question. The only thing after this is what's famously known as the ASAT question, which is specifically designed for you to get it wrong. But this one, you've still got another one. You've only slipped up once, slipped up once, slipped up once. Two girls are doing amazing, right? Yeah, knocking it out of the park. And Gabriel, you're doing amazing too.
I'm still surviving.
You've not got any wrong, I don't think. Okay.
This will be the one.
Question 9. Which of these new distilleries has released a 10-year-old age statement at 46% ABV? This is very recent news. 10-year-old age stated 46% ABV whiskey. Is it A, Glengyle, B, Glasgow, C, Wolfburn? So we're kind of thinking about this concept of new distilleries here. There's a new distillery out there that's got 10-year-old. That means that 10 years ago this spirit was made, at least 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's going to contextualise that. But maybe it's a distillery, maybe if it's Glengyle that's been around for a wee while and they've never had a 10-year-old age statement up until now. I think you know what this is.
Yeah, we've discussed it. So
We've talked about it. Yep. Do you all know what it is? Who's released a 10-year-old age statement? 3, 2, 1. Everybody thinks it's Wolfburn. And it is indeed Wolfburn. Well done, Wolfburn. Congratulations. I wish you the best of luck with it. I wish it was a $5 cheaper, but I'll let it fly. And I'm still going to buy the thing. But I'm going to buy it and I'm going to talk about it so that everybody else can get it. If I can get a hold of it. I don't know what the outcome is. But it's amazing. There's a new so-called distillery there that's competing with a 10-year age statement with the incumbents. It's not everybody has to do that, needs to do that, I think. I don't think it's, but it's quite interesting to see. Let's see how everybody's scoring. We're going to get 10 out of 10s. This is a celebration tonight. Surely. There's going to be lots of 10 out of 10s. We've got Hell's Wood, Graham Fraser, Philip Wagner, Jimmy Legg, you star Jimmy, Rob Smith, Nicholas, Sugar Kitty. Come on, Whiskey Wine Trails, Tom, Scotch on the Bayou. Oh, there's going to be buckets. This is like a freebie tonight. And it's never going to be known that so many people get 10 out of 10s tonight. It's incredible. Ian Bruce, Danny Hebbington. Fantastic. Congratulations, everybody. It jumps again. Great quiz and good luck for everyone to get a 10, says Ian Bruce. On that note, let's move into the inevitable asshat at the end. You want to know what an asshat question is, don't you? Okay. Raasay Distillery is one of the most westerly of the active Scottish malt distilleries. But how many are further west? Now, you want to just answer that question, but that an asshat is not that. No, you need to know the answer of something else in order to answer an asshat. So is it about the same as the number of distilleries owned by Pernod Ricard, which is Chivas Brothers? Is it B, the number of distilleries built on islands? Is it C, the number of distilleries beginning with the letter R? How many distilleries are further west than Rassi? You don't know this.
I know what I'm going to
Have a go at it.
Yeah.
No, we're Scotch malt distilleries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scotch malt distilleries. Okay. Tough, right? Okay. So you're looking for a 10 out of 10 tonight, Ailey, are you? Yeah. Is this making it suddenly look a wee bit trickier? Yeah. So Too Slow is complaining. No, look at the asshat emojis coming up now. Everybody's obviously complaining. I got a pass mark on a blind wag at the beginning. Good for you, Tom. Wonderful to see you in, buddy. Rob Smith has gone, wow. Oh no, they all do. I'm going to have to ask somebody to commit. So Alistair, try not to have a wee look over your shoulder at whatever he's going to hold up.
Okay.
We'll get you to guess separately, all right?
Okay.
Everybody's kind of logging their thing, their best guess. So we're looking at how many distilleries are further west than Rassi, and it's got to match one of those options. Number of distilleries owned by Chivas Brothers, Pernod Ricard. Number of distilleries built on islands. one of them distilleries beginning with the letter R. You're all been sitting there going, oh, Royal Lochnagar. Okay, 3, 2, 1. A, B, C, A. Fantastic, Alistair.
There's a lot of Pernod Ricard distilleries. There's quite a few island distilleries, but there's not actually that many distilleries starting with R, so I'm going to go C.
You're going to go C. So you think, well, it's low number. We're looking for a low number here. I can tell you that there are 12. There was 13, but they sold to more to Elixir. So there were 12 Pernod Ricard Chivas Brothers distilleries. There are 20 distilleries built on islands, and there are 4: Raasay, Royal Lochnagar, Rosebank, and Royal Bracla are the 4 distilleries beginning with R. And I can tell you that there are 12 distilleries west of. So the A's, we've got a 10 out of 10 then. Yeah. A 10 out of 10 from you as well. Girls killing it. Did you slip up at the end right there? 10 out of 10 as well. So Gabriel got a 10 out of 10 as well. Let's see who matched Ailey, Sharon, and Gabriel in the chat then. Who managed it?
Further west.
Come on, somebody. Who got a 10 out of 10? Let's take this out. Yes, 9 out of 10. Rick Johnson's celebrating his 9. Did the asshat clean out everyone? Because it just looked like there was going to be some. I don't see any.
I'm not seeing a 10 yet.
Any 10s? 9 out of 10. I think I was looking for a celebration. It looks like the asshat has maybe done just a ridiculous. Look at that, Danny Hevington, 9 out of 10 dynamic. I'll still take the 7. Got me on the last question again, says Rob Smith. What a killer asshat. Des get taken out as well. Danny Keenan says, gutted to miss the vPub. We'll catch it on replay. Thanks for joining, Danny. And it's brilliant to have you. Just got from a long drive from Devon to Wales, but I have the Milfburn 10 waiting for me. Somebody got a 10.
Can't see it.
Clean shot right down the line. Sugar Pity. I think we have to. So Gabriel, we raise a glass. You get another glass of Tweeddale. Ailey, you get a glass of Tweeddale, and Sham, you get a glass of Tweeddale. Congratulations. And I think the Rassi team just about held it together and competed quite well with the folks. Well done, anybody that did manage a 10 out of 10. I'm not seeing it. It's quite incredible how many 9 out of 9s there were and no 10 out of 10.
Makes me feel better.
That's for the assets there. How did you get on? Did you manage it?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Did you slip up at the end? Of course you did.
Messed up big time. Yeah.
Cheers. There's work to be done, Alistair.
The team, it's us. Sorry.
Come back next week. There will be an opportunity for you to snag your 10 out of 10 next week. I had to put something in there that was going to make it tricky for even the Rassi folk on a Rassi quiz to make it a challenge for them. Jimmy Legg has bought us a big dram to say it was so great to see everyone for the quiz. Perfect vPub, and thanks, Alistair. Thanks to you, Jimmy. Thanks very much for your dram. Let's raise a glass to Jimmy Legg. Thank you very, very much for your participation and your kind words of support, Jimmy, always. And your awkward, difficult questions, to be honest, because we need both all the time.
All good questions.
Yeah, got a pass mark at least, says Bruce Bermar. Good to see you in, Bruce. My best ever, 7 out of 10. Good for you, Bruce. Still a fantastic score. Hellswood is saying, fine on location vPub. Thanks to you, Alistair, and all the Raasay team. Aquaviti so close, 9 out of 10. Helen, you're used to getting your 10 out of 10s as well. I think that probably slipped you up as well. Molasses Mike is saying, way to spoil the 10 out of 10. Right? Sorry, Mike. As I said, come back next week and we can do it. Listen, the reason that I wanted to invite everybody in on this thing is just kind of the warmth of the welcome, the theme, the all in it together, the family feeling, the pride that you take in the thing that you're doing and what the difference that you're making here. You feel it. People have to come here to experience it, but take it from me, it's here and everybody that you speak to, everything that you touch, everything that you do, it's fantastic. So I wanted them to come in and be part of it at the end. I want to say a special thanks to you. You have to go off and say a special thanks to whoever's given you the energy to do this thing, to go forward, to take you off your original course. And hopefully, maybe it's just that distant thing on the horizon that one day you will see that original dream. But in the meantime, Alistair, you're making a difference. You're doing a great thing. You're making a fantastic product. And people that drink this and try this will know that that's not just me being grateful for being here. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for your honest, candid approach and everything. Brilliant stuff.
Roy,
I'm going to raise this glass to everybody to say thanks for joining me here, live on location at Rassi. It's brilliant. Sometimes we do have the technical challenges, but thanks to Scott. Thanks very much for helping us keep it. If it's come across clean at all, it's thanks to support from Scott today. But let's raise a glass to tell everyone you're all very, very dearly loved, and I look forward to welcoming you back here next week. But in the meantime, everyone, Slàinte mhath. Terrific stuff.